Chapter 3256. Will you give me face? Zhuan frowned as he watched the soul-cultivating pot tear through the air. He had wanted to chase after it, but the soul-cultivating pot was simply too fast. In the blink of an eye, it had disappeared from his sight. Since he could not catch up, Zhuan gave up on chasing after the soul-cultivating pot. Instead, he waved his sleeve and retrieved the Ho Yi's godly arrow that was nailed between Elder Hong's eyebrows. At the same time, the four evil spirits came to Zhuan's side. They lowered their heads submissively, and there was not the slightest hint of disobedience in their eyes. Zhuan was extremely satisfied. The four evil spirits were all at the mid-sky-reaching master level. With his current strength, it would be very difficult for him to tame them. Therefore, he was very grateful that the Black King had helped him tame the four evil spirits. After all, the four evil spirits had been of great help to him. Zhuan opened the second layer of the Yama's ghosts diagram that hovered above his head. A black fog spread out, sweeping up all the demons and monsters. Soon after, all of them were sucked into the Yama's ghosts diagram. The Yama's demons diagram closed, and Zhuan put it and the Ho Yi's godly arrow into his spirit ring. He was not surprised that he could get rid of Elder Hong so quickly. After all, he had used both Ho Yi's godly arrow and the Yama's ghost diagram, and every single one of the monsters in the second level of the Yama's ghost diagram was a terrifying mid-level Empyrean Lord, and not just any ordinary mid-level Empyrean Lord. If he could not get rid of Elder Hong, who had just reached the mid-sky-reaching master level, then he would be too useless. After Zhuan completed this series of actions, the many foreign races spectating around the blood-weeping platform were dumbfounded. They had yet to recover from the unrealistic reality of Elder Hong's death. When the foreign races below the platform recovered from this shocking reality, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. They finally reacted. They realized that everything that had happened before their eyes was real. In other words, Elder Hong had really fallen. Yuelf's face was pale, her delicate body trembling, but she did not lose her composure. The moment she came back to her senses, Yuelfu waved her hand and summoned a flying divine artifact. She stepped onto it, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared on the spot. Unfortunately, Zhuan was faster than her. The Thunderfire sword lashed out and slashed at the flying divine artifact beneath Janelf's feet. Intense sword light flashed as the flying divine artifact was destroyed. Yuelf groaned as she fell from the sky and landed on the ground in a sorry state. "Miss Wolf, where are you going?" Zhuan's cold voice sounded. His eyes flashing with cold light landed not far away from Yuefu. As for the other races near where Yuel had landed, they all consciously distanced themselves from her. Zhuan was too terrifying. He was someone who dared to kill the Phoenix people, Feng Bumming and Elder Hong. They could not afford to offend him. However, the other races also knew that Zhuan had killed Elder Hong of the Phoenix people. This would thoroughly enrage the Phoenix people. Soon, the Phoenix people would send a large number of troops to Phoenix Blood City. Zhuan would definitely die. At this moment, Zhuan was a powerful trapped beast in their eyes. They did not dare to provoke such a lunatic. This guy might do something crazy. Yuelf's delicate body trembled slightly. She stood up and forced herself to be calm. "Zhuan, what do you mean by this? Even if you like me, you can't force me to stay. You won't be able to keep my heart if you do this. If you really like me, then you should respect my choice. I'm not feeling well, so I need to return to the sacred Marten tribe." Zhuan looked coldly at Yuelf. The latter was about to say something, but she suddenly stopped. Her delicate body trembled even more, and her heart was filled with apprehension. She realized that Zhuan's gaze was very strange. It no longer had the adoration and passion from before. This made Yuelf feel a sense of danger. "And you guys? Did I say you could leave?" Zhuan did not pay any attention to the frightened Yuefu. Instead, he slowly turned around and looked at the cavalrymen brought by the Phoenix clan. They were about to mount their large horses and leave. "Zhuan, you have already committed a heinous crime by killing the elder of the Phoenix people. If you still want to kill us now, that will be a grave sin. When the time comes, the Phoenix people will not let you off. However, if you let us off now, we will put in a good word for you. This will also be beneficial to you." There is no need to kill us all. The leader of the cavalry standing at the front clasped his fist at Zhuan. His eyes were filled with fear. You mean that I will definitely be afraid of the Phoenix people? Zhuan's lips curled into a mocking smile. He really did not care about the Phoenix people. His purpose in entering the primitive heaven domain was to cause havoc among the Phoenix people and rescue Mu Chenxue. Since he was here to shed all pretense of cordiality with the Phoenix people, what was there to be afraid of? The leader of the cavalry was calm and said, even if you are not afraid of the Phoenix people, you have to consider the Devouring clan. The Phoenix people have already investigated your background. You are a member of the Devouring clan. You are not afraid, but it does not mean that the clan behind you is not. Moreover, it is one thing if you are not afraid of the Phoenix people, but it is another matter if you can fight against the Phoenix people alone. I know that you are a smart person and know what to do. Letting us go is definitely the wisest choice. Unfortunately, before the leader of the cavalry could finish his words, a sword light flashed in front of him and his head flew up. Blood splattered everywhere and his head fell heavily on the ground. Don't you know how annoying you are? If you want to run, just run. Why do you have to make it sound so dignified? What a boring guy. The thunder fire sword flashed. Xiao He looked at the leader of the cavalry with disdain and mocked him. Kid, I am not in a good mood with these guys. Can I vent my anger on them? Xiao He sat on the hilt of his sword and looked at Zhuan as if he was asking for Zhuan's opinion. Do as you wish. As long as you don't let them escape Phoenix Blood City, you can do whatever you want. Zhuan nodded and no longer paid attention to the cavalry. He knew that with Xiao He's strength, it was more than enough to deal with this cavalry. Zhuan slowly walked towards Yuefu. The latter watched as Zhuan came closer and closer. Her face was as pale as snow and her delicate body trembled even more. She did not know how Zhuan would treat her. When Zhuan arrived in front of Yuefu, the cavalry of the Phoenix people began to scream miserably. Zhuan knew that Xiao He was venting. He did not care about this. He had never been soft-hearted towards his enemies. Miss Yuefu, I have something to ask you. I wonder if you would do me the honor of coming to the Bloodshed Tea House with me? To Yuefu's surprise, Zhuan did not use violence against her nor did he insult her. Instead, he gracefully invited her to the Bloodshed Tea House. Chapter 3257. Phoenix Blood Pool. When Zhuan arrived at the Green Blood Tea House, Hu Mei, who was in charge of the Green Blood Tea House, hurried forward to greet them. However, Zhuan could see that Hu Mei was looking at him with eyes full of reverence. He knew that Hu Mei should already know what happened at the Weeping Blood platform. After greeting Hu Mei and asking her to arrange a good room for them, Zhuan led Yuefu straight to the room. Saiku had already returned to the Green Blood Tea House after Zhuan won the Weeping Blood platform. Moreover, Zhuan wasn't worried about Saiku. After all, the latter was a descendant of the Shadow Clan and could imitate the aura of other clans. Even if he died at the Weeping Blood platform, nothing would happen to him. At most, he could just change his identity and slip out of Phoenix Blood City. After returning to the room, Saiku deliberately avoided him. In the large hall, Zhuan and Yuefu sat opposite each other. Yuefu seemed a little uneasy. Her beautiful eyes flickered and she didn't dare to look at Zhuan. Miss Yuefu, you've tried to harm me time and time again. Moreover, you've exposed me time and time again. Logically speaking, I should have killed you with a single slap. Zhuan's voice was calm, but his words made Yuefu's heart twitch fiercely and her beautiful face turn pale. She wanted to explain, but Zhuan's cold gaze frightened her to the point she was speechless. If that's the case, why didn't you just kill me before? Why did you want me to follow you back to the Green Blood Tea House? Yuefu said with a self-deprecating smile. She already knew that Zhuan had always been using her. Back then he had only pretended to be her suitor. I have some important questions to ask you. If your answers satisfy me, I can consider letting you live. But only this time. If you dare go against me again, then I'll personally kill you. Zhuan spoke with a gloomy and cold gaze. No, I definitely wouldn't dare. Lord Zhua, ask away. As long as I know, I will tell you everything. Yuefu immediately became spirited when she saw that Zhuan was planning to let her go. She couldn't wait to tell him everything she knew. She even changed the way she addressed him to Lord Zhuan. You claim to be Feng Buming's woman, so you should have a good relationship with him. You should also know the Phoenix people's situation, Zhuan said. Yuefu's eyes flashed with light. She nodded. She nodded and said, I've been with Feng Buming for a long time. I've been invited by Feng Buming many times. I have been invited to meet him many Phoenix people. If Lord Zhuo wants to ask about the Phoenix clan, you've found the right person. Then tell me, other than the 3 clan elders, who else are the main experts of the Phoenix clan? Zhuan asked. He knew very well that the Phoenix people were, after all, one of the top 10 races. It was impossible for them to only have 3 divine masters. The Phoenix people have more than 10 divine masters. The most representative of them are the 3 divine masters and the 2 divine masters of Xuanhua. Among them, the 2 divine masters of Xuanhua are extremely powerful. It is said that even Grand Elder Mu Yu is extremely wary of them, said Yuefu. Zhuan's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect the Phoenix people to have so many experts. There were actually more than 10 divine masters of Xuanhua. What he was more concerned about was that the 2 divine masters of Xuanhua that Yuefu mentioned were actually at the same level as the Grand Elder. Zhuan had met Grand Elder Mu Yu before. Mu Yu had left a deep impression on him when he was in the Star Wars. Although Mu Yu's cultivation was at the middle divine master stage, he was at the peak of the middle divine master stage. He was far stronger than the average middle divine master stage expert. He was also much stronger than the 2 divine masters, who had just reached the middle divine master stage. But now, the 2 divine masters of Xuanhua that Yuefu mentioned were actually at the same level as Mu Yu. This was a little tricky. Yuefu's beautiful eyes flickered. She hesitated for a moment before saying, Lord Zhuo, the Grand Elder and the 3rd Elder left the primitive heaven realm some time ago. They are no longer with the Phoenix people. Moreover, the 2 divine masters of the Phoenix people were killed by you. The only true experts left are the 2 divine masters of Xuanhua. The Grand Elder and the 3rd Elder left the Phoenix people? Do you know why they left the primitive heaven realm? Zhuan asked in surprise. Yuefu shook her head and said, I don't know about this either. I only heard about it from Feng Buming. But Feng Buming didn't tell me the specific reason. Zhuan nodded and sighed softly in his heart. Without the Grand Elder and the 3rd Elder among the Phoenix people, the pressure on him when he entered the Phoenix people this time was much less. Other than them, are there no other experts among the Phoenix people? Zhuan continued to ask. Yuefu said in a low voice, Actually, the Phoenix people have a very mysterious Phoenix master. Her whereabouts are unpredictable. It is said that she is basically not among the Phoenix people. This is because when the Phoenix people were fighting in the north and south, this Phoenix master never appeared. There is an even stronger Phoenix master. Zhuan frowned slightly. The Phoenix people were really strong. The 2 divine masters of Xuanhua and the 3 divine masters were already terrifying enough. Above them, there was an even stronger Phoenix master. This time, he had to be more careful when he entered the Phoenix people. If he provoked the Phoenix master, then the joke would be too big. Yuefu saw that Zhuan was deep in thought, so she tactfully shut her mouth. After a long time, Zhuan finally continued to ask, the Phoenix people's 2nd elder, Elder Hong, I remember that he died in the human race's star cannons during the Star Wars. This matter caused a huge sensation in the primitive heaven realm at that time. Why is that 2nd elder still perfectly fine? Zhuo finally directed his question to the 2nd elder. When he had first met Elder Hong, his heart had been filled with doubts. However, he couldn't ask Elder Hong about this. After all, they were enemies. Elder Hong definitely wouldn't answer him. Yuefu's beautiful eyes looked strange as she said, Lord Zhuo, don't you know that there is a Phoenix blood pool among the Phoenix people? Phoenix blood pool? What is that? Zhuo asked in confusion. The so-called Phoenix blood pool is said to be formed from a drop of blood essence left behind by the Phoenix, the ancestor of the Phoenix people. This Phoenix blood pool has the powerful ability to nourish the soul. Basically, all important figures among the Phoenix people will leave a trace of their soul in the Phoenix blood pool. When one of them unfortunately perishes, the Phoenix clan will extract that strand of soul from the Phoenix blood pool and begin to use the Phoenix blood pool to restore that person's soul. After the soul is restored, the Phoenix people will spend countless precious materials to forge a powerful body for the owner of the soul, allowing their cultivation to recover to the peak in a short period of time. The second elder relied on this method to revive from the Phoenix blood pool. However, the price of using the Phoenix blood pool to restore the soul is too high. Every time the soul is restored, a lot of the Phoenix blood pool's energy will be consumed. And this Phoenix blood pool only has that one pool of water, which is extremely precious. If it isn't an important figure, the Phoenix people generally won't waste the Phoenix blood pool to revive their clansmen. Zhuowen's eyes showed surprise. He didn't expect the Phoenix people to have such a miraculous Phoenix blood pool. And this method was similar to the principle of his doppelganger. His doppelganger had the powerful recovery ability of the Go Mangu. As long as there was a trace of soul, with sufficient energy, his soul and body could be restored. Chapter 3258. Beat them at their own game. Zhuowen then asked Yuefu a few more questions about the Phoenix people. What surprised him was that Yuefu had a deep understanding of the Phoenix people and gave him satisfactory answers. After asking, Yuan fell into deep thought, while Yuefu looked at Zhuowen worriedly. She was afraid that her answers would provoke Zhuowen into killing her. After all, she was now the meat on the chopping block, while Zhuowen was the knife. Zhuowen raised his head and looked at Yuefu, saying, "Miss Yuefu, you can leave now. But I have to warn you. After leaving Phoenix Blood City, scram back to the Sacred Martin clan. If you have other thoughts, go and inform the Phoenix people and let me know. Then you can forget about living." Yuefu stood up and hurriedly bowed to Zhuowen, her beautiful eyes filled with gratitude. Master Zhua, after Feng Bumming returns to the Phoenix people, he will definitely inform the two mystical flame protectors about what happened here. When the time comes, the Phoenix people will definitely send troops to encircle and annihilate you. I think it's best for you to leave the Phoenix people's territory now, Yuefu suddenly said. Zhuowen waved his hand and said, "You don't have to worry about this. I still have some matters to attend to in Phoenix Blood City and will need to stay for some time. Moreover, the Phoenix people are quite a distance away from Phoenix Blood City. If the Phoenix Blood City army invades, they won't be able to reach here so quickly." Yuefu's beautiful eyes flickered and she bid farewell to Zhuowen and left the Green Blood Tea House. "Master Zhua, you're letting Yuefu go just like that? That woman is very scheming. Once she leaves Phoenix Blood City, she will definitely sell you out." Saiku walked out from another room and looked at Zhuowen with a worried expression. Zhuowen shook his head slightly and said indifferently, "You're right. After Yuefu leaves Phoenix Blood City, she will immediately spread the news that I might still be in Phoenix Blood City." "Then why did you?" Siko didn't understand. "Because I did it on purpose. I needed to let the Phoenix people know that I, Yuan, have not left Phoenix Blood City. Let them think that I, Zhuowen, am so arrogant, so fearless. Only in this way would the Phoenix people send most of their experts to Phoenix Blood City. Even the two mystical flame protectors guarding the Phoenix people would all come. At that time, the Phoenix people will become empty. Wouldn't it be easier for you to infiltrate the Phoenix people?" Zhuowen's voice was flat, but his eyes flashed with wisdom. Saiku slapped his forehead and hurriedly gave Zhuowen a thumbs up, saying, "Master Zhua, you're really smart. Look at this blockhead of mine, I didn't think of this, really. Now, all we need to do is wait. However, before the Phoenix people come, I will set up the 12 Divine Fiends formation in a 5-kilometer radius around the Green Blood Tea House," Zhuowen said. "What? 12 Divine Fiends formation? Master Zhua, I remember that this 12 Divine Fiends formation is a heaven-piercing formation, right? You're saying that you will set up the 12 Divine Fiends formation alone?" Siko licked his lips. He felt that what he had just heard was so surreal. Although he knew that Zhuowen knew a little about Array Dao, he thought that Zhuowen's Array Dao skills were at most at the creation realm. But now, Zhuowen actually said that he was going to set up a heaven-piercing formation. Could it be that Zhuowen was actually a heaven-piercing formation master? At this thought, Siko's eyes lit up. He knew very well how terrifying a heaven-piercing formation master was in the primitive celestial realm. If Zhuan was really a heaven-piercing formation master, then he would really be rich if he followed Zhuan. Zhuan did not care about Zico's complicated thoughts. Instead, he left the Green Blood Tea House. After informing Hu Mei, he began to set up the 12 Divine Fiends formation around the Green Blood Tea House. After all, the 12 Divine Fiends formation was a heaven-piercing formation. It would take a lot of time and effort to set it up completely. Zhuan was not sure when the Phoenix people would send an army over. Therefore, he planned to complete the 12 Divine Fiends formation as soon as possible. After Yuefu left Phoenix Blood City, she immediately took out her flying divine weapon and flew into the sky. However, she was not heading towards the sacred Marten tribe. Instead, she was heading towards the Phoenix people. At the same time, she took out her communication jade talisman and sent the specific situation of Phoenix Blood City, as well as Zhuowen's words, to the 2 Xuanhua Guardians. Although she was not familiar with the 2 Xuanhua Guardians, she knew how to contact the 2 Xuanhua Guardians from Feng Buming's information. At this moment, this contact method came in handy. Among the Phoenix people, in the Phoenix Cry Palace, the 2 Xuanhua Guardians paced back and forth with ugly expressions. Soon, Feng Buming staggered out from the depths of the Phoenix Cry Palace. If not for the 2 beautiful maids supporting him, Feng Buming might have fallen to the ground. "This body is so weak," Feng Buming said unhappily. The 2 Xuanhua Guardians frowned. Among them, the Black Guardian said in a deep voice, "Feng Buming, you want to condense a new body in a short period of time. Naturally, it won't be too good. In the later stage, you can refine this body again until you get used to it. Now, you should tell me, what happened to you in Phoenix Blood City? Your soul was thrown into the soul cultivating pot and escaped back to the Phoenix people. And where is Elder Hong now?" Feng Buming clenched his fists tightly. If not for the fact that he was powerless now, he would have punched the ground to vent the anger in his heart. Elder Hong should have died. He died in the hands of Zhuan. Feng Buming roared in a low voice. "What? How is this possible?" The 2 Xuanhua Guardians were shocked. They knew that Feng Buming and Elder Hong had gone to Phoenix Blood City to deal with Zhuan. In their opinion, Feng Buming and Elder Hong were more than enough to kill Zhuan. Therefore, they were not worried about them at all. But now, Feng Buming's body had collapsed and only his soul had escaped. What was even more ridiculous was that Elder Hong had died. This was too unbelievable. Could it be that Zhuan was really that powerful? "Feng Buming, what happened? You are not Zhuowen's match. Tell us about what happened in Phoenix Blood City." Xuanhua Guardian's face was gloomy as he asked Feng Buming. Feng Buming nodded his head and recounted everything that had happened in Phoenix Blood City. After the 2 Xuanhua Guardians heard this, they fell silent. If what Feng Buming said was true, then this Zhuan was really not simple. This child was at least at the peak of the middle stage of the Tongtian Master Realm. He could not be underestimated. 2 Guardians, Elder Hong died because of me. We should go to the Phoenix Blood Pool and take out Elder Hong's soul to reconstruct his body. Feng Buming said. He Xian flatly refused and said, "Feng Buming, the Phoenix Blood Pool is a consumable item. Every time the soul is revived, the Phoenix Blood Essence energy in it will be reduced by a little. Elder Hong has already used the Phoenix Blood Pool once. He is no longer qualified to use it again. Otherwise, it would be unfair to us. After all, we have never used it once. If we die in the future, we will have to rely on the Phoenix Blood Pool." Feng Buming's eyes widened, but he quickly became dispirited. He Xian was right. The Phoenix Blood Pool could only be used once. Elder Hong had just used it not long ago and wanted to use it again. This was indeed against the rules. Chapter 3259. Preparation and Disguise. Are you sure you want to give your chance to Elder Hong? He Xian looked at Feng Buming in surprise. Yes, Elder Hong died in order to save me. This time, it's because of me, so I'm willing to give my chance to Elder Hong. Feng Buming said in a deep voice. He Xian nodded and said, "If that's the case, then Elder Hong will have a chance to revive his soul again. But there's still a long way to go. Now, our first task is to find a way to get rid of Zhuowen, that malignant tumor. At the mention of Zhuan, Feng Buming's eyes revealed a venomous look and said, "This kid must be eliminated. Otherwise, there will be endless trouble." At this moment, the communication jade talismans at the waists of He Xian and Shui Hua lit up. Both of them were puzzled because the communication jade talisman showed an unfamiliar contact number. "It's Yuefu's number. Guardians, can you see what Yuefu sent?" Feng Buming said with a calm gaze. Yuefu said that Zhuan is still in Phoenix Blood City. According to Zhuan plans to stay in Phoenix Blood City for a while. If this is true, then Zhuan is too arrogant. He Xian flipped through the contents of the communication jade talisman. His face was terrifyingly gloomy and his voice was filled with anger. He doesn't put us Phoenix people in his eyes at all? Not only did he not escape after killing our Phoenix people, he even plans to stay in Phoenix Blood City. This kid is too arrogant, Shui Hua said in an unfriendly tone. Since Yun is so arrogant, then we'll let him know the strength of our Phoenix people. We'll let him experience despair once. Guardians, Buming needs your help. Feng Buming cupped his fists at the two guardians and said in a deep voice. The two guardians naturally knew what Feng Buming meant. They cupped their fists at Feng Buming and said in a deep voice, "This matter is a disgrace to the entire Phoenix people. We'll naturally help you, Buming. Good. The two of you, bring 7 Skirich experts and follow me to Phoenix Blood City. If we don't kill that Zhuan, where will the face of the Phoenix people go?" Feng Buming said with killing intent in his eyes. 3 days later, Yuefu arrived at the Phoenix people on a flying divine artifact and was taken to the Phoenix Cry Palace by the Phoenix people. At this moment, outside the Phoenix Cry Palace, Feng Buming stood with his hands behind his back. The two guardians of Xuanhua stood behind him. Other than that, there were also 7 powerhouses of the Phoenix clan with powerful auras who stood behind him respectfully. The auras of these 7 Phoenix people were too strong, and Yuefu could feel her heart palpitating. She knew that these 7 were most likely sky-piercing experts. "If you come here," Feng Buming said with a smile. Yuefu obediently approached Feng Buming. Just as she was about to act coquettishly, Feng Buming said coldly, "Now I'll ask and you'll answer. You're not allowed to speak without my permission." Looking at Feng Buming's cold gaze, Yuela's heart trembled. Her beautiful eyes were filled with grievance, and she could only nod in agreement. "Good. How did you escape from Phoenix Blood City? After that Zhuan killed Elder Hong, he shouldn't have let you go so easily, right?" Feng Buming asked. Yuefu's beautiful eyes flickered as she said, "Buming, you also know that Zhuan is actually one of my pursuers. I told him that I wanted to return to your side. Although he was unwilling, he didn't want me to be angry, so he let me go in the end." Feng Buming narrowed his eyes and continued to ask without batting an eyelid, "Then the message you sent earlier said that Zhuan really intends to stay in Phoenix Blood City for a period of time? If you're lying to me, then don't blame me for not caring about our old friendship." Tears flashed in Yuefu's beautiful eyes, and the grievance on her beautiful face intensified, but she still said, "Buming, I heard it from Zhuan with my own ears. If you think that I brought false news, then forget it. I'd better leave this place. Anyway, you don't believe me." Feng Buming stopped Yuefu, and a smile finally appeared on his face as he said, "Yuefu, how can I not believe you? After all, this is an important matter. If the news is really unreliable, then wouldn't our trip be in vain?" After coaxing Yuefu again, Feng Buming instructed the 2 Xianhua protectors to set off for Phoenix Blood City. At the same time that Feng Buming and the others set off, near the Bloodshed Tea House, Zhuan laid down the last array foundation. He let out a light sigh and muttered to himself, "It's finally set up." It really wasn't easy to set up this 12 Divine Fiends formation. When Zhuan re-entered the Bloodshed Tea House, Siko was already waiting for Zhuan inside. "Miss Hu Mei, the experts of the Phoenix people will soon come to Phoenix Blood City. At that time, they will definitely attack the Bloodshed Tea House. You'd better leave the Bloodshed Tea House." Zhuan took out a spiritual ring and handed it to Hu Mei, saying, "The cultivation resources inside are enough for you to cultivate to the creation realm. You can find a place to cultivate in seclusion. When you're strong enough, you can come out to train." Hu Mei took the spiritual ring and looked inside. Her beautiful eyes widened. The Heavenly Path origin crystals and high-grade divine pills were everywhere. The cultivation resources inside were simply too abundant. This was the first time she had seen something like this. Miss Humei, you don't have to refuse. This is a token of my sincerity. Moreover, you've helped me a lot. I don't like to owe others favors. If you don't accept it, I won't feel at ease. Zhuan said solemnly. Humei hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she still accepted Zhuan's gift. Brother Zhua, I took advantage of you this time. If we have the chance to meet again in the future, Humei will definitely repay today's kindness. With that, Humei left the Bloodshed Tea House with Hu Ling. After Humei left, the waiters in the Bloodshed Tea House were basically all dismissed by Jun. In fact, after Jun killed Elder Hong and stayed in the Bloodshed Tea House, most of the waiters in the tea house had left. There was no need for Zhuan to deliberately dismiss them. Now, the Bloodshed Tea House was empty. Apart from Zhuan and Saiku, there was no one else. With a wave of his sleeve, Zhuan summoned his human true body. Brother Saiku, this is my human doppelganger. He looks almost the same as me, but the human aura on him is too obvious. You're from the Shadow Clan and are skilled in concealment. I wonder if you have a way to conceal your human aura? Zhuan pointed at his human true body and looked at Saiku. Saiku glanced at his human true body in surprise, but he didn't suspect anything. He nodded and said, I do have a secret technique that can temporarily change your human doppelganger's aura. However, it can only be maintained for 3 days. 3 days is enough, Zhuan said. Saiku nodded and came in front of his human true body. He formed a seal with both hands. Immediately, a black gas spread out and enveloped his human true body. Chapter 3260. Siege. After the aura of the main body was completely concealed, the main body glanced at the doppelganger and rushed out of the green blood tea house, leaping to the top of the tea house. The main body took out a praying mat and sat on the top of the tea house. His loud voice resounded. Today, I, Zhuan, will be the overseer of Phoenix Blood City. In the future, I, Zhuan, will be the rule. If anyone is dissatisfied, then come to the Green Blood Tea House to find me. I, Zhuan, will accompany you to the end. When the main body said this, all the foreign races in Phoenix Blood City raised their heads and looked at Zhuan's figure on the top of the Green Blood Tea House. Their eyes were filled with anger. This Zhuan was too arrogant. He actually dared to say that he would be the rule in the future. But anger was anger. With Zhuan's strength, they did not dare to say anything. While all the foreign races in Phoenix Blood City were focused on the main body on the top of the tea house, Zhuan's doppelganger and Saiku had already quietly left through the back door of the Green Blood Tea House. Through a secret passage, they left Phoenix Blood City. After the main body felt that the doppelganger had left, it no longer attracted hatred and returned to the Green Blood Tea House. The moment Zhuan's doppelganger and Saiku left Phoenix Blood City, they took out a flying divine tool and flew towards the Phoenix people's camp. However, Saiku was very smart. The route he chose to go to the Phoenix people was not an ordinary one. Instead, it was a more remote and detoured route. The purpose of doing this was naturally to avoid encountering the experts of the Phoenix people. Feng Bumming's group was extremely fast. In 2.5 days, they arrived at Phoenix Blood City. The moment they entered Phoenix Blood City, there were foreign races who immediately complained to them that Zhuan was too arrogant. Previously, he actually dared to say such bold words on the top of the Green Blood Tea House. This Zhuan is really arrogant. Does he really think he is a big shot? He actually dares to say that he is the rule of Phoenix Blood City. After the 2 black flame protectors heard the foreign race's complaint, their eyes were filled with killing intent. In their hearts, they had already sentenced Zhuan to death. Go. Let's go to the Jasper Blood Tea House. There's been no movement from the Jasper Blood Mulberry. I'm afraid that Zhuan has already dealt with it. Today, we'll tear down the Jasper Blood Tea House and destroy that Zhuan. Feng Bumming led the 2 guardians of Xuanhua and the others straight to the Emerald Blood Tea House. And inside Phoenix Blood City, the foreign races who received the news all followed Feng Bumming and the others. Many of the foreign races were secretly shocked when they saw Feng Bumming's lineup. This time, the Phoenix people were truly enraged. Not only did they send great experts like the Xuanhua protectors, but they also sent 7 experts who were at the early stage of the sky-piercing realm. Such a lineup could easily kill a mid-Empyrean lord, and even a late Empyrean lord would be in an extremely difficult situation if surrounded by such a lineup. Then Jun is done for. This time, the Phoenix people are serious. That Jun really thinks he's some big shot. Does he think he's so great just because he killed the 3 commanders and 2 clan elders of Phoenix Blood City? This is simply a fool's dream. Now that the real experts of the Phoenix people are here, it's impossible for him to survive. In Phoenix Blood City, many of the foreign races who were unhappy with Zhuan were gloating when they saw the lineup of the Phoenix people. They wanted to see if Zhuan would kneel and beg for mercy under such a lineup, or if he would still be unyielding and arrogant to the end. Yun, why aren't you coming out to accept your death? Feng Bumming came to the front of the Jasper Blood Tea House with the 2 guardians of Xuanhua standing behind him. His eyes were slightly smug as he shouted in a loud voice. Yue Fu, on the other hand, stood beside Feng Bumming with a sneer in her beautiful eyes. She naturally believed that Zhuowen would definitely die this time. Feng Bumming, you're just a loser. What right do you have to ask me to come out and accept my death? Zhuowen's leisurely voice came from the Jasper Blood Tea House. Then the door of the Jasper Blood Tea House opened and Jun, dressed in white, slowly walked out. Zhuan looked around and found that other than the Phoenix people experts brought by Feng Bumming, the rest of the foreign races in Phoenix Blood City had surrounded his Jasper Blood Tea House. Zhuan sneered in his heart. It seemed that these foreign races in Phoenix Blood City were completely on the side of the Phoenix people. This was within Zhuowen's expectations. Although he appeared to be very strong before, he was only one person after all. Compared to the colossus of the Phoenix people, in the eyes of others, he was indeed insignificant. Everyone, as long as you're not a friend of the Phoenix people, leave now and don't interfere in the grudge between me and the Phoenix people, then I, Zhuowen, will not find trouble with you after this. And I won't hold a grudge against you. Of course, if you insist on being on the side of the Phoenix people and then go against me, I believe you will regret it very soon. Zhuowen slowly opened his mouth. His voice was very calm, but it was filled with coldness and sharpness in the calmness. Ha, what a joke. Who do you think you are, Zhuowen? And you still want to find trouble with us after this? How can you say that? Do you still have a chance after this? Now you're going to die, and you're going to die a horrible death. One of the foreign races sneered and ridiculed, causing the surrounding foreign races to laugh loudly and unscrupulously. Feng Bumming looked at Zhuan mockingly and said, Don't be mistaken. Phoenix Blood City was built by us Phoenix people. Who do you think you are? You still dare to say that you're the rule of Phoenix Blood City. Where did you get the face to say that? After saying that, Feng Bumming clapped his hands and said, Everyone, if you can help me take down this kid today, the Phoenix people will reward you handsomely. This is my promise to you. Now, attack together with me. After Feng Bumming finished speaking, the foreign races surrounding the Emerald Blood Tea House rushed towards the center of the building like a flood. Among the 2 Xuanhua guardians, the He Xian guardian led 7 experts from the Phoenix people and followed closely behind. The Xuanhua guardian stood beside Feng Bumming, protecting him at all times. After all, Feng Bumming was the prodigy of the Phoenix people. He was also an important candidate for this Sorcerer Song conference. He could not let anything happen to Feng Bumming again. Zhuan stood quietly at the entrance of the tea house. He slowly took out an array flag and threw it out. Suddenly, with the Emerald Blood Tea House as the center, a terrifying aura suddenly appeared within a 10-mile radius. This aura was too terrifying. It covered everyone's body and made them feel even more pressured. 12 huge phantoms strode over from 12 different directions at the edge of the Tenli range. The 12 shadows took a step forward and stepped right into the midst of the foreign races. Screams could be heard continuously. At this moment, 30% of the foreign races were trampled to death by the 12 ancestral sorcerer shadows. Even their souls were not spared. Well, it's the 12 heavenly deities killing formation. How is this possible? Chapter 3261. Ancestral Haljua stood quietly in front of the green blood tea house. The 12 divine beings killing formation had been activated to the most terrifying level. 12 silhouettes of magi swooshed out like raging dragons. Large groups of non-humankind beings around the tea house let out shrill screams and died one after another. Many foreign tribes knelt down and begged Zhuowen for mercy, promising that they would never go against him again. Zhuowen only laughed coldly, not paying any attention to these foreign races begging for mercy. He had said what he needed to say. Since these foreign tribes did not listen, they would have to pay the price. He Xian, who was leading 7 Phoenix people towards Zhuowen, was stopped by an ancestral sorcerer shadow. I didn't expect the 12 divine fiends formation. However, the ancestral sorcerer shadow you set up is only at the early stage of the Master of Heaven. It can't stop me. He Xian's eyes were cold. His body was surrounded by pitch-black flames. The aura in He Xian's body was like a mountain, exploding and expanding continuously. It was extremely terrifying. Boom! He Xian punched the ancestral sorcerer shadow. The black flames spread to the ancestral sorcerer shadow like maggots. The ancestral sorcerer shadow kept retreating. Its huge body was burned by the black flames and was soon burned into ashes. The smile on the corners of He Xian's mouth seemed to be even more complacent. But soon, he was surprised to discover that the ancestral shaman's silhouette that had been burned to ashes had actually recovered at this moment and flashed towards him once again. At the same time, the other 11 ancestral sorcerer shadows strode over and began to besiege He Xian's team. The other foreign tribes surrounding the tea house were just a mob. Most of them were killed by the 12 ancestral sorcerer shadows. Now, the remaining few were trembling under the terrifying pressure of the formation. They were unable to display any of their battle prowess. He Xian's face was ugly. He was not afraid of the 12 ancestral sorcerer shadows. These ancestral sorcerer shadows were only at the early stage of the Master of Heaven. However, they were very difficult to deal with. After killing them, they would reassemble quickly. It was impossible to destroy them. Boom! The 12 ancestral sorcerer shadows and He Xian's team collided. Terrifying energy ripples spread out like waves. Then, the two sides were engaged in a fierce battle. However, the 12 ancestral sorcerer shadows obviously had the upper hand. The 7 Phoenix people, He Xian's shadow, were each held by 1 ancestral sorcerer shadows. He Xian's shadow was sorcerer shadows. He Xian's shadow and sorcerer shadows could not be He Xian. Shui fire, Xian fire. Blood blood. Blood blood fire. Blood 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 blood. Only by killing him can this 12 overseer divine wraith formation be broken. Blood 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 shadows. Shadow blood blood shadows blood 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 shadow blood. Xuehua Protector hesitated for a while, but in the end he still followed Feng Buming's order and rushed towards Zhuowen. However, the blood fire was blocked by an energy barrier when it got close to Zhuowen. Heaven Master Defense Formation? Xuehua retreated, his eyes full of shock and uncertainty. He returned to Feng Buming's side and said in a low voice, "Buming, this person should be a divine master of the heavenly crossing formation. I can't break that defensive formation in a short period of time." "What? There's a heaven master defense formation? This guy? What should we do?" Feng Buming panicked. "Buming, don't worry. We have so many experts on our side. Although we can't do anything to Jun, he can't do anything to us either." Blood 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 shadow said. Feng Buming heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that. His brows were tightly knitted together. They could not stay in this stalemate. Zhuan did not say a word. He re-entered the green blood tea house. He had achieved his goal this time. All that was left was to delay Feng Buming and his group. His doppelganger and Si-Ko would sneak into the Phoenix people and successfully rescue Mu Chenxue. Then they would be done. While Feng Buming and the rest were trapped in the 12 divine beings killing formation, Nguyen and Si-Ko were gradually approaching the Phoenix people's encampment. The two of them spent 3.5 days and stopped at a mountain peak. A few thousand meters in front of the mountain peak, a huge city shrouded in flames appeared in their line of sight. In the sky above the city, countless flames suddenly surged up and actually manifested into the phantoms of fire phoenixes. These fire phoenix shadows circled above the city. The powerful aura overflowed and made people tremble in fear. Other than the 3 clan elders and blood guardians, the Phoenix people have a total of 12 experts in the early stage of Heaven Master. Among the Phoenix people, these 12 experts are called the 12 fire deities. Based on the information from your doppelganger, Feng Bumming and his group brought 7 fire deities. That is to say, there are 5 more fire deities among the Phoenix people. Siko said in a low voice. Uefu once mentioned that there is a Phoenix Master among the Phoenix people. Could the Phoenix Master be among the Phoenix people? Zhuan was not worried about the 12 fire deities. He was only worried about the mysterious Phoenix Master. The Phoenix Master was superior to the 3 clan elders and blood guardians. His cultivation was at least at the late stage of Heaven Master or even stronger. Zhuan knew that he was no match for such a terrifying expert. What he was most afraid of now was whether the mysterious Phoenix Master was also hiding among the Phoenix people. I don't think so. The Phoenix Master hasn't appeared for countless years. There are many rumors that the Phoenix Master went to the mysterious heaven accessing place in order to pursue a higher realm. That is the most mysterious place under the starry sky. Only the Lord of Heaven accessing place is qualified to enter, Siko said with an envious look. Siko, I'm counting on you now. I'll entrust the great world to you. Zhuan said as he entered the great world. The great world turned into an insignificant speck of dust and stuck to the corner of Siko's clothes. Siko's eyes were solemn. His temperament was constantly changing. Soon he looked like the Phoenix people. Even the aura on his body was exactly the same as the Phoenix people. The Phoenix people were calm and unperturbed as usual. Even the Phoenix people who were guarding the gate looked lazy. The Phoenix people had been a strong race in this area for countless years. For many years, no one had dared to trespass into the Phoenix people. Of course, they did not think that anyone would have the guts to trespass into the Phoenix people. In their opinion, that would be courting death. Therefore, when Siko disguised himself as a Phoenix people and entered the city, he was let in without being questioned. It had to be said that the main city of the Phoenix people was very big. The most eye-catching thing was probably the sky-high tower that was set up in the center of the main city. The surface of the tower was burning with dark flames. The flames did not emit heat. Instead, they emitted a deathly chill. It was very strange. That's the Phoenix Purgatory, Siko said in a low voice. Let's not go to the Phoenix Purgatory first. Let's go to the ancestral shrine where the Phoenix blood pool is located. Zhuan's voice came from the great world. Siko hesitated for a while and nodded. Okay. The ancestral shrine was located in the southeast corner of the main city. This ancestral shrine was actually the memorial tablets of the powerful people of the Phoenix people. Of course, these powerful people had died naturally because their lifespans had reached their limits. In addition, the Phoenix blood pool was stored in the ancestral shrine. This was considered a precious and confidential item among the Phoenix people. However, the ancestral shrine was heavily guarded. The Phoenix people had specially sent 2 fire gods to guard the ancestral shrine. Chapter 3262. Barge in Lord Zhua, are we just going in like this? Saiku's forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his legs were weak. The ancestral shrine was heavily guarded, and he would definitely die if he barged in. Go in. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Zhuowen's indifferent voice rang in Saiku's ears. Saiku smiled bitterly in his heart, but he did not dare to disobey Zhuowen's order. He took a deep breath and walked toward the ancestral shrine. The guards outside the ancestral shrine were not weak at all. They were all Genesis stage experts. The 2 guards had already noticed Saiku. When Saiku reached the entrance, one of the guards extended his right hand and stopped him. This is the ancestral shrine. What are you doing here? Do you want to die? Get out of here. The guard scolded coldly. Saiku did not say anything, nor did he leave. Instead, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from his body and pressed down on the 2 guards at the entrance like a mountain. Before the 2 guards could react, 2 rays of sword light pierced through their foreheads. They did not even have time to groan before their souls were destroyed, and they died at the entrance. The entire ancestral shrine was alarmed when the battle occurred. The experts hidden in the ancestral shrine rushed out like owls in the night. "Who is it? How dare you kill the guards of the ancestral shrine? How dare you?" A middle-aged man was the first to rush out of the ancestral shrine. His eyes were filled with murderous intent, and he immediately saw Saiku standing helplessly at the entrance. "Go to hell." The middle-aged man instantly understood that Saiku, who was frightened to the point of not knowing what to do, should be the culprit. Without giving Saiku a chance to explain, the middle-aged man swung the long spear in his right hand toward Saiku. Saiku's face was pale, and he knew that he was done for. The middle-aged man's cultivation was not weak. He was in the late creation realm, and Saiku's cultivation was far from fully recovered. He was only in the early creation realm, and the gap between him and the middle-aged man was obvious. However, before the middle-aged man could get close to Saiku, he was blocked by two rays of sword light. These two sword lights were the Blood Fairy sword and the Sacrificial Death sword that had just killed the guards at the door. The middle-aged man retreated repeatedly. When he couldn't retreat any further, his eyes cracked and he couldn't help but let out a blood-curdling scream. His entire body was pierced through by the two sword lights, and he couldn't be more dead. Whether it was the Blood Immortal sword or the Sacrificial Death sword, they were both peak creator-level divine weapons. Either divine sword could fight a peak creator-level expert, not to mention that the middle-aged man was only a late-stage creator-level expert. "Saiku, enter the ancestral shrine." Zhuowen's voice rang in Saiku's ears. Saiku had no choice but to follow Zhuowen's instructions and step into the ancestral shrine. When he saw the figures rushing out of the ancestral shrine, his heart pounded rapidly. He was so nervous that he could die. Several more figures rushed over, wanting to kill Siko. Unfortunately, they were all blocked by the Blood Immortal sword and the Sacrificial Death sword, and several of them were killed. Saiku slowly approached the ancestral shrine, and more experts appeared in the ancestral shrine. They surrounded him in circles and launched an extremely fierce attack. The Blood Immortal sword and the Sacrificial Death sword circled around Saiku. Their sword lights flickered, but Saiku could see that the two divine swords were already having trouble blocking the attacks. Moreover, peak creator-level experts had appeared in the ancestral shrine. Just those few peak creator-level experts were enough to make the Sacrificial Death sword and the Blood Immortal sword tremble. They wouldn't be able to protect them for long. When the Sacrificial Death sword and the Blood Immortal sword were about to collapse, an even more terrifying sword light shot out from the small world attached to Saiku's clothes. Terrifying thunder and fire energy spread out in all directions with Saiku as the center. The two types of energy, thunder and fire, flashed alternately. The peak creator-level Phoenix people who were about to defeat the Sacrificial Death sword and the Blood Immortal sword were shocked. They didn't even have time to retreat before they were swept in by the thunder and fire energy. The thunder and fire energy was too terrifying. These peak creator-level Phoenix people screamed in pain. However, their screams didn't last long. A sword light shot out from the thunder and fire domain and directly pierced through their foreheads. These peak creator-level Phoenix people didn't even have time to make a sound before they died. Their bodies were burned into ashes by the thunder and fire. A bunch of trash and ants. How dare you bully my little brother in front of me? You really don't know what's good for you. Today, I'll beat you until your parents won't recognize you. After killing the peak creator-level Phoenix people, Xiaohei was very smug. He shouted in a strange voice and cut through the void, rushing into the group of Phoenix people in the ancestral shrine. These Phoenix people who rushed out of the ancestral shrine were basically only creator-level cultivators. Although they were strong, in front of Xiaohei, they were just displaying their slight skills in front of an expert. None of them could withstand one of Xiaohei's attacks. Keep going. Into the ancestral shrine. Zhuowen's voice rang out again. Saiku nodded. After Xiaohei came out, he relaxed a lot. He knew that the Thunder Fire Sword was the highest level divine weapon Zhuowen had. It was a powerful mid-stage heavenly crossing realm divine weapon. Other than the two fire gods guarding the ancestral shrine, the rest of the Phoenix people were nothing in front of the Thunder Fire Sword. You've got guts. How dare you trespass into the ancestral shrine? You're asking for death. A thunderous shout came from the depths of the ancestral shrine. Immediately, a terrifying attack formed into a sharp sword shape and blasted towards Saiku's vitals. The sword shape's power was too terrifying. It carried with it an unparalleled killing intent that sealed off all of Saiku's escape routes. Seiko Xion's heart was in his throat. He could sense the scent of death in this sword form. Just like that, his feet seemed to be rooted to the ground, and he didn't move an inch. I'm done for. Saiku's face stiffened with fear. His eyes dimmed. Rumble. However, just as Saiku was about to resign himself to death, a figure shot out of the great world at the corner of his clothes and punched the incoming sword shape. Bang bang bang. The sound of collisions rang out incessantly. Immediately after, the terrifying sword shape was shattered by the person's punch. The energy ripples formed from the collisions spread out in all directions, forming a vast wave of energy. Saiku, enter my great world. Before Saiku could react, Gon grabbed him by the collar and pulled him into his great world. Then, he stepped through the entrance of the ancestral shrine and entered it. However, the moment he stepped into the ancestral shrine, he immediately felt a resistance. Dense array ripples appeared around him. He knew that there should be a powerful array restrictions set up inside the ancestral shrine. It's just a creation realm defensive array. Zhuowen snorted coldly and threw a punch as well. He used the formation Dao cracking technique to land on the restriction. With a crack, the array restriction at the entrance was instantly broken by Zhu. Zhuowen took the opportunity to enter the ancestral shrine. How dare you, scoundrel! The moment Zhuowen entered the ancestral temple, the owner of the sword-shaped figure in the depths of the ancestral temple had already rushed out. When he saw Zhuowen actually enter the ancestral temple, he was furious and directly chased after him. Chapter 3263. Edited by Mike. Here the Phoenix Blood Pool. The expert who had rushed out of the ancestral shrine was naturally one of the two fire gods guarding the shrine. He was at the early heaven-piercing lord level. This fire deity looked like a middle-aged man. His red hair soared into the sky like a cluster of burning red flames. Zhuowen stood at the entrance of the ancestral shrine and calmly looked at this fire god. He suddenly took out the Ho-E Divine Arrow and knocked it on the bowstring of the Ho-E Divine Bow. When he was halfway done, he released two fingers, and the Ho-E Divine Arrow shot out like a bolt of lightning, carrying a terrifying killing intent as it charged at the fire god. The fire god, who had been charging at Zhuowen with murderous intent, trembled in fear when he sensed the Ho-E Divine Arrow's terrifying killing intent. Shit, it's actually the Ho-E Divine Arrow. The middle-aged man immediately stopped and turned to flee. The moment he sensed the Ho-E Divine Arrow's terrifying killing intent, he knew that it was not something he could resist, so he decisively fled. But it was too late. No matter how fast he was, he could not be faster than the Ho-E Divine Arrow. As soon as he turned around, Ho-Ye's Divine Arrow pierced through the back of his head and pierced through his head. The middle-aged man did not even have the chance to scream before he died. After killing the middle-aged man, Yun used the torch dragon's eye and immediately saw the other fire god in the depths of the ancestral shrine. This fire god's divine sense had clearly seen everything that had happened here and knew that Jun had a terrifying divine weapon like the Ho-E Divine Arrow. He was quietly leaving the ancestral shrine. Unfortunately, Zhuowen had already set his sights on him. Stay. After retrieving the Ho-E Divine Arrow, Yun knocked it on the Ho-E Divine Arrow again and shot it into the depths of the ancestral shrine. Not long after, the other fire deity in the depths of the ancestral temple who was ready to make a move and escape was directly nailed to the ground. Even in death, he could not figure out how Zhuowen knew his specific location. The Phoenix people's ancestral shrine. Zhuowen flicked his sleeve and put away the Ho-E God Arrow, and then he stepped into the ancestral shrine while a trace of coldness appeared in his eyes. Zhuowen stomped his foot on the ground and executed the Fate Space-Time Annihilation. A long purple river suddenly swept out from the void behind him. The purple river became more and more turbulent and expanded, eventually enveloping the entire ancestral hall. Wherever the purple river enveloped, space-time was distorted and shattered. In just an instant, the space where the ancestral temple was located was completely shattered and distorted. The huge ancestral temple collapsed and eventually turned into ruins. Through Torch Dragon's eyes, Juan saw the entrance of a hidden underground passage hidden in the ruins. At this moment, the battle on the Thunder Fire Sword's side was basically over. Most of the experts guarding the ancestral shrine had been killed by Xiao He and the Blood Fairy Sword and the Sacrificial Sword. Juan flicked his sleeve and put away the 3 divine swords. After that, Juan went into the hidden underground passage. Juan's actions were too big. He had directly destroyed the ancestral shrine and completely alarmed the Phoenix people. What's going on? There seems to be a strong battle coming from the ancestral shrine. Did someone break into the Phoenix people? How is that possible? Don't you know the status of the Phoenix people in the Eldritch Heavenly Realm? In the Eldritch Heavenly Realm, who would dare to offend the Phoenix people and break into the Phoenix people? Unless that person has a screw loose. The experts of the Phoenix people in the main city came out of their seclusion and rushed towards the ancestral shrine. However, the moment they came out, they found that the magnificent ancestral shrine in the southeast of the main city had been turned into ruins. Who is it? How dare he tear down the ancestral shrine of the Phoenix people? We must catch the culprit and make him pay a painful price. All the Phoenix people experts were furious. They madly gathered at the ancestral shrine. Among them were the other 3 fire deities who were still in the main city. The 3 fire deities were also angry, but they were calmer than the others. They sent out a message to seal off the entire Phoenix people. Then, they led the elites of the Phoenix people and rushed towards the ancestral shrine. The basement was very spacious. In the middle of the basement was a pool of magma-like water that emitted a scorching aura that made him uncomfortable. Through the Torch Dragon's eye, Juan saw that there were many divine souls floating in the pool. However, these divine souls were very weak. They were only about 1/10,000th of a complete divine soul. Juan knew that the pool in front of him was the Phoenix blood pool that Uefu had mentioned. These divine souls should be the divine souls left behind by important figures of the Phoenix people. Back then, Elder Hong relied on the Phoenix blood pool to be resurrected. Juan waved his right hand and caught a divine soul in his hand. He was very familiar with the aura of this divine soul. It was the divine soul left behind by the second elder of the Phoenix people. As the divine soul left behind here was too weak, it was basically in a state of unconsciousness. The divine soul of Elder Hong in his hand was the same. Without hesitation, Zhuowen crushed the last strand of Elder Hong's soul. Then he unceremoniously stored the pool of Phoenix blood into his great world. Zhuowen also entered the great world. At this moment, in the great world, the saintess of the Phoenix people was sitting cross-legged on the shore of a small island in the middle of the lake. Her beautiful eyes were filled with determination. She wanted to become stronger than Zhuowen. Then she would be able to break out of this great world and regain her freedom. Soon, the saintess of the Phoenix people noticed something strange. Then she looked up and saw a stream of magma-like water pouring down from the sky. This can't be the Phoenix blood pool, right? The saintess of the Phoenix people was no stranger to the Phoenix blood pool, because a divine soul of hers was in the Phoenix blood pool. The moment the water entered the great world, she felt the connection with her divine soul. But how was this possible? The Phoenix blood pool was placed in the ancestral shrine of the Phoenix people. The place was heavily guarded. How could Zhuowen break in? Zhuowen landed on the small island in the middle of the lake, not far from the saintess of the Phoenix people. Zhuowen looked at the saintess of the Phoenix people indifferently and said, "Saintess, please move aside." The saintess of the Phoenix people subconsciously moved aside. Zhuowen dug a deep pit not far from the attic of the small island in the middle of the lake. After the deep pit was completed, the Phoenix blood that poured down from the sky fell into the deep pit, forming a new Phoenix blood pool. Zhuowen, this is the Phoenix blood pool? The saintess of the Phoenix people's beautiful eyes were filled with shock. Juan ignored the saintess of the Phoenix people. Instead, he said to Ghost Plume and In Wuxia, who had rushed over, "The two of you, destroy all the divine souls in the pool. I still have some matters to attend to outside. Oh right, remember not to let the saintess touch the pool water. Otherwise, you know the consequences." After giving his instructions, Juan left the great world. The saintess of the Phoenix people was so angry that her chest heaved violently. Juan had gone too far. He had actually ignored her completely. At the same time, the saintess of the Phoenix people had an ominous premonition. She guessed that Juan had broken into the ancestral shrine. This kid had even destroyed the Phoenix blood pool. Could it be that he was like a fish in water among the Phoenix people? Could it be that no one could suppress him? That's impossible. This kid's aura is only at the peak of the God of Creation stage. No matter how strong he is, it's impossible for him to break out of the Phoenix people alive. As long as this kid dies, I'll have a chance to escape. Chapter 3264. The Ancestral Temple Ruins. Above the Ancestral Temple Ruins, many Phoenix people gathered. The most eye-catching ones were the three leading figures. These three were the remaining three fire deities who had stayed behind to guard the Phoenix people. Among the three fire deities, one of them had a handsome face and was dressed in white. He looked like an elegant young master. His name was Hiyu. The other one was a middle-aged dwarf who was less than 5 feet tall. His name was Wenrui. The last one was an old man with white hair and a white beard. His name was Hixien. Among the three fire deities, his aura was the strongest. He was not any weaker than Gaogu. In fact, he was even stronger. At this moment, Hixien landed in the ancestral temple ruins. When he saw the other two dead fire deities, his eyes were filled with shock and anger. Both Jian Xiu and Jia Yun are dead. They were killed in a short period of time. The killer must be at least a middle-stage master of heaven or above. Hixien's eyes were filled with fear as he spoke in a low voice. Hiyu, Wenrui, and the rest of the Phoenix people were also silent. They were shocked. It had only been a short while since they had sensed the fluctuations of the battle. However, Jian Xiu and Jia Yun, two early-stage masters of heaven, had already died. If the opponent was really so strong, it would be difficult for Hixien, Hiyu, Wenrui, and the rest of the group to kill such an expert. I'll inform the two guardians of Xuanhua first. Hixien's eyes were solemn as he took out a communication jade talisman and sent a message to the two guardians of Xuanhua. He told them everything that had happened in the Phoenix people. Boom. After Hixien put away the communication jade talisman, the ancestral temple ruins suddenly collapsed. The tunnel that had been buried by the ruins was blasted open by a force. Juan slowly walked out of the tunnel under everyone's watchful eyes. Juan had already seen Hixien and the rest. He looked very calm as he looked at them and said indifferently, "Are you here to block the way?" Hixien and the others were all stunned. They didn't know this guy at all, but wasn't he a little too arrogant? They could all guess that this guy was the one who tore down the ancestral shrine. However, after this guy came out, he acted as if nothing had happened and even asked them why they were blocking the way. Just how big was this guy's nerves? "Friend, we have never seen you before. The Phoenix clan has no enmity with you. Why did you barge into our Phoenix clan's ancestral hall and destroy it?" Hixien suppressed the anger in his heart and said in a deep voice. Although Zhuowen's aura was only that of a god of creation, Hixien didn't dare to be careless. He knew very well that since this person was able to destroy the ancestral temple and annihilate more than 10 guardians including the supervisor and Jia Yun in a short period of time, this person was absolutely not a simple figure. Hixien didn't move. Hiyu, Wenrui, and the other Phoenix people's experts naturally didn't act rashly either. "If you know my name, you'll know why I've come to you Phoenix people," Zhuowen said calmly. "Who are you?" Hixien asked, feeling that something was amiss. "My name is Xun," Zhuowen said calmly. Hixien's pupils shrank as he stared fixedly at Zhuowen. Zhuowen's fame was too great during this period of time, and it had spread throughout the entire territory of the Phoenix clan. Hixien couldn't be more familiar with the name Zhuowen. However, he had never seen Zhuowen's appearance before. This was also why he hadn't recognized Zhuowen when he'd seen Zhuowen. The funny thing was that Feng Bumming had already led the 2 Xuanhua Guardians and the other 7 fire deities to Phoenix Blood City to encircle and annihilate Zhuan. However, he hadn't expected that Zhuan would attack the Phoenix people's nest at this time. You've killed many of our Phoenix people. Now, you've even tore down the ancestral shrine of the Phoenix people. Isn't that enough? Now that you've left the Phoenix people, we can treat it as if nothing had happened. Xian took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart as he spoke to Zhuan. Zhuan's strength was simply too terrifying. Originally, when it was rumored that this kid had killed the 3 commanders and 2 elders of Phoenix Blood City, he didn't believe it and thought that it was just an exaggeration. Now that he saw that the 2 fire deities, Jianxiu and Jiayun, had been dealt with in such a short time, he knew that this kid's strength was probably even stronger than the rumors. If they joined forces, it would be difficult to keep Zhuan here. Furthermore, there was the risk of being completely wiped out. Xian didn't dare to face a ruthless person like Zhuan head-on. Of course, if there were experts like the 2 Xuanhua Guardians in the clan, Xian wouldn't dare to be so cowardly. You're sending me away now? Are you dreaming? Zhuan walked forward step by step as the aura on his body rapidly increased. His entire body emitted a dazzling, crystalline light. In just an instant, Zhuan arrived in front of Xian and ruthlessly punched him. With this punch, Zhuan used the profound meaning, sky-splitting blade and heaven and earth perishing at the same time. His punch had the majestic sharpness of the sky-splitting blade and the terrifying destructive energy of heaven and earth perishing at the same time. Xian also punched out, but his expression quickly changed. Zhuan's punch gave him too much pressure. Bang! The 2 fists collided, and the terrifying fist energy intertwined, sweeping up a terrifying astral wind energy. Xian spat out a mouthful of blood and was directly sent flying. His right fist was smashed into pieces by Zhuan's powerful fist energy. Zhuan let out a muffled groan. His body swayed, but he managed to stabilize himself in time. Let's attack together and destroy this Zhuan. Xian immediately shouted the moment he was sent flying. The moment He Yu and Wen Rui received the order, they burst out with the aura of an early-stage Tong Tian master. They split up and attacked Zhuan from both sides. The remaining dozens of Phoenix people were unwilling to fall behind. They all chased after Zhuan and surrounded him. Zhuan was like a peerless god of war as he fiercely charged forward and exchanged a punch with He Yu and Wen Rui respectively. Terrifying energy exploded. He Yu and Wen Rui both let out a muffled groan and spat out a mouthful of blood. They couldn't help but retreat. On the other hand, Zhuan's face was slightly pale. He resisted the urge to spit out blood. Instead of retreating, he advanced and caught up with He Yu, who was flying backward, and punched out again. He Yu's expression changed slightly. He found it hard to believe. This one actually took his and Wen Rui's joint attack and advanced instead of retreating. This guy was too abnormal. Seeing that Zhuan's attack was getting closer and closer, He Yu could only muster all the energy in his body to meet it. Bang! He Yu's hands were directly broken. Fortunately, he managed to block Zhuan's attack. Before He Yu could celebrate, a sword light wrapped in thunder and fire swept out from Zhuan's waist and quickly pierced through He Yu's forehead. He Yu only felt a pain in his forehead. Then, his sea of consciousness became chaotic and he lost consciousness. Bang! Chapter 3265. Xian the instant he killed He Yu, Zhuan stomped his right foot in the air and rushed towards Wen Rui, who was still in a daze. Wen Rui was already scared out of his wits. When he saw Zhuan rushing towards him, he cried out loudly and retreated continuously. Unfortunately, the instant Wen Rui retreated, he felt the surrounding space-time distort and stagnate. Wen Rui realized that a long purple river had appeared around him unknowingly. This long purple river swept over and controlled the space-time around him, causing his speed to drop to the lowest in a short period of time, as though he was in slow motion. The instant Wen Rui stopped, Zhuan had already arrived in front of Wen Rui and punched towards him. Wen Rui knew that he had already missed the opportunity to dodge and could only muster all his strength to fight with Zhuan. At the same time, he was also on guard against the thunder fire sword that was hidden in the dark. He knew very well that this Zhuan was stronger than them, but he was not strong enough to kill them in one strike. He died mainly because he was not on guard against the thunder fire sword that suddenly appeared. Boom! When Rui was slightly stronger than Hiyu. When Zhuan punched him, he retreated a few steps while when Rui retreated continuously with a groan. The instant when Rui retreated, the thunder fire sword streaked across the sky and flew towards Wen Rui's forehead. However, Wen Rui, who was already on guard, suddenly twisted his body and avoided his vital parts. The thunder fire sword only chopped off Wen Rui's legs. Your reaction is not bad, but under this Dragon Lord sword, don't think that you can come out alive. Hehe, die for this Dragon Lord. Xiao He was astonished, but soon let out a burst of lewd laughter. She once again streaked across the sky and fought with Wen Rui. Wen Rui was already injured and his legs were chopped off. His strength had dropped tremendously. Under the concentrated attacks of the thunder fire sword, he was almost exhausted and retreated continuously. Zhuan did not intervene in the battle between thunder fire sword and Wen Rui. He knew that with Xiao He's power, it was more than enough to eliminate Wen Rui. Zhuan looked around. He was now surrounded by dozens of Phoenix people, and He Xian, who had been repelled by him, had returned. He Xian's strength was the strongest among the three fire gods, so although he seemed to be in a sorry state just now, he actually did not suffer many injuries. Ah! A miserable cry rang out. Not far away, Xiao He flashed in the boundless domain of thunder and fire. She instantly pierced through Wen Rui's forehead, crushing his sea of consciousness and soul. She returned to Zhuowen's side. He Xian's eyes were filled with monstrous anger, but he still forced himself to calm down. He coldly stared at Zhuan and said, "That's enough. If you stop now, the Phoenix people can let bygones be bygones." "Stop." Ha! Zhuan laughed. The purple river that surrounded him instantly expanded like an angry dragon, turning into layers of purple waves that surged into the sky. Then, it swept towards the Phoenix people around him. At the same time, Yin used the torch dragon's eyes. In his eyes, everything around him was moving in slow motion. In his eyes, the Phoenix people were full of flaws. Zhuan was in the domain of the purple river. His body flickered like a ghost, and he held the thunder fire sword in his right hand. He appeared in front of a Phoenix people expert and stabbed his sword, accurately landing on the forehead of this Phoenix people expert. This Phoenix people expert wanted to dodge, but he soon realized that it was all in vain. This sword had sealed off all his escape routes, forcing him to take this sword head-on. This Phoenix people expert wielded his divine weapon to block Zhuowen's sword, but he soon realized that his block was like a piece of paper. Zhuowen's sword flashed away and the sword light sank into his forehead. Blood splattered everywhere. This Phoenix people's eyes dimmed as he fell from the sky, turning into a lifeless corpse. Zhuowen's body flashed and flashed in the purple river like lightning. Every time he flashed, the sword light would spread and take the life of a Phoenix people. He Xian looked at the fallen experts of the Phoenix clan, his eyes filled with rage. He chased after Zhuowen with all his might. But in the domain of the purple river, time and space were constantly distorted, hindering him from moving forward. He couldn't catch up with Zhuowen at all. He could only watch from the back as the subordinates he had brought were slaughtered. "Zhuan, fight me face to face if you have the guts. What kind of ability is it to fight against them?" He Xian was anxious and roared at Zhuan. Zhuan just sneered and ignored He Xian. He was still flashing in the purple river, reaping the lives of the Phoenix people around him. When Zhuan stabbed the last Phoenix people expert with the thunder fire sword, the purple river suddenly rolled and rolled up 100 feet high wave, crushing down on He Xian below. "He Xian, it's your turn now." Zhuan stood on the purple wave and looked down at He Xian below. The murderous intent in his eyes was monstrous and terrifying. He Xian's face was pale. At this moment, Zhuowen's aura was too terrifying. He felt a trace of fear in his heart. Boom, boom, boom. The purple wave suddenly crushed down and drowned He Xian in an instant. He Xian roared to the sky and stirred up all the strength in his body to form a terrifying energy spiral, barely resisting the surging purple wave. Bang! All of a sudden, a hole was torn open in the waves, and a sharp sword chi rushed out. He Xian looked and saw Zhuan holding the thunder fire sword and slashing at him. The thunder fire energy turned into the most condensed and sharp attack, and together with the surrounding purple river, it blasted on the energy spiral in front of He Xian. Boom! The energy spiral didn't last long and was crushed into countless pieces by the terrifying double energy. Before He Xian could react, his chest was pierced by the thunder fire sword and nailed to the ground. Countless purple waves receded, and Zhuan stepped out and stepped on He Xian's chest. He Xian's face was pale. He took a deep breath and asked with a gloomy look, "Why didn't you kill me?" He Xian knew that if Zhuan had used the thunder fire sword to target his glabella, his divine soul would have been annihilated by now. But Zhuan didn't, and it was obvious that the former did it deliberately. "I have a question for you. As long as you answer it well, I'll spare your dog life," Zhuan said indifferently. The death intent in He Xian's eyes faded a lot. He stared at Zhuan with wide eyes, and after seeing that Zhuan was not lying, he nodded, "Ask away. As long as I know, I will answer you. Is there a human called Mu Chenxue imprisoned in the Phoenix Purgatory?" Zhuan asked with a fervent gaze. He Xian narrowed his eyes, looked deeply at Zhuan, and asked tentatively, "Did you come to the Phoenix people for that human called Mu Chenxue?" However, just as He Xian finished speaking, Zhuan stomped his face to the ground. "Right now, I'm the one asking you, not you. You just need to answer me," Zhuan said coldly. He Xian's eyes were filled with humiliation. He thought for a moment and said, "Yes, there is indeed a human imprisoned in the Phoenix Purgatory. I don't know if she is called Mu Chenxue." Zhuan's gaze softened, and he continued, "Then can you release the person in the Phoenix Purgatory?" Chapter 3266. The news has been exposed. Only the Grand Elder can release the prisoners from the Phoenix Purgatory? Zhuan frowned. Before he entered the Phoenix people, he already knew from Yuefu that the Grand Elder and Third Elder had left the Phoenix people for some important matter. Zhuan didn't care about why the Grand Elder and Third Elder had left the Phoenix people. His main concern now was Mu Chenxue's situation. "Then I'll destroy this Phoenix Purgatory," Zhuan snorted coldly. Carrying He Xian, he instantly arrived in front of the Phoenix Purgatory. Zhuan had killed most of the Phoenix race's upper echelon experts in one breath. Now, many of the Phoenix race's clansmen avoided Zhuan like the plague. Who would dare to stop him? The Phoenix Purgatory was a tower burning with black flames. The surface of the tower was sealed, and there wasn't even a window. Zhuan didn't even see the existence of an entrance at the bottom of the tower. Boom! Zhuan threw He Xian to the ground and punched the Phoenix Purgatory. Boom! Countless black flames exploded and spread from Zhuan's fist to his entire body like maggots in a tarsal bone. Zhuan groaned and retreated. He wanted to extinguish the black flames on his body, but found that the black flames were extremely difficult to extinguish. The surface of his body was almost burnt. Zhuan could only use the profound creation mysterious light. It took a lot of effort to extinguish the black flames on his body. He stopped, and the injuries on his body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, his eyes were filled with shock. What was the black flames on the surface of the Phoenix Purgatory? They were so strange and difficult to deal with. He Xian, who had been thrown aside, looked at Zhuan in disbelief. The black flames on the surface of the Phoenix Purgatory were the flames of the Phoenix. They were immortal and could burn forever. Even if he was entangled by the black flames, he would have to pay a great price to extinguish them. However, Yun seemed to be able to extinguish the flames easily, and he didn't seem to be injured at all. Thinking of this, He Xian looked at Zhuan with more fear and respect. Zhuan took out the Ho-I Godly Arrow and the Ho-I Godly Bow. He pulled the bowstring of the Ho-I Godly Bow to its limit. Instantly, the Ho-I Godly Arrow soared into the sky with terrifying power, slamming into the surface of the Phoenix Purgatory. But what made Zhuan frown was that the Ho-I Divine Arrow's power only left a shallow mark on the surface of the Phoenix Divine Arrow. After putting away the Ho-I Godly Bow and Ho-I Godly Arrows, Zhuan gave up on the idea of destroying the Phoenix Purgatory. Even Ho-I's Godly Arrow had only left a very shallow mark on the surface of the tower. With his current abilities, it was basically impossible for him to destroy such a sturdy structure. Do you know the way to enter the Phoenix Purgatory? Zhuan was unwilling to give up. This Phoenix Purgatory was too strange. He couldn't destroy it at all. And he was unwilling to leave this place just like that. After all, Mu Chenxue was in the Phoenix Purgatory. He had to go in and take a look. Otherwise, he would be unwilling to leave. He Xian's eyes flickered as he hurriedly said, "It's very simple to enter the Phoenix Purgatory. You just need to leave a prisoner's mark on your hand and you can enter." As soon as He Xian finished speaking, his face was immediately stomped into the ground by Zhun. "You want me to be a prisoner of the Phoenix people?" Zhuan said coldly. He Xian continued to struggle and hurriedly explained, "No. I'm just telling you the way to enter the Phoenix Purgatory. What I need is a way to enter without using a prisoner's mark." Zhuan said indifferently. He had learned about the Phoenix Purgatory from Uefu. He knew that the prisoners that the Phoenix people had captured for countless years were all ferocious existences. He knew very well that since the Phoenix people could suppress these ferocious prisoners, they must have a way to control them. The prisoner's mark was probably a way for the Phoenix people to control them. If he agreed to imprint the prisoner's mark, it would be really bad. He Xian was silent. "If you don't say it, you'll die immediately." Zhuan's eyes were like torches, and his voice was filled with killing intent. He Xian finally panicked. He hurriedly said, "I'll say it. Please spare my life, Lord Zhua." Zhuan raised his foot and looked at He Xian coldly. "Then quickly say it." He Xian stood up in a sorry state. His eyes flickered as he said, "The upper echelons of the Phoenix people are the 2 protectors of Xuanhua, the 3 elders, and the 12 fire gods. Although there are rumors of the Phoenix Master's existence, the Phoenix Master has not appeared for too long. We all thought that the Phoenix Master had fallen. Our blood essence can open the undying bird purgatory once, but using blood essence to open the purgatory has a huge price. If that's the case, then help me open it. But now is not the time." Zhuan's eyes were cold. After he finished speaking, he said to Saiku who had followed him, "Brother Saiku, thank you for bringing me into the Phoenix people. What happens next has nothing to do with you. You can leave the Phoenix people first." As he spoke, Zhuan took out a divine pill and handed it to Siko. He said, "This is a complete 7 transformation curse pill. The ones I gave you are all half-finished products. They can only delay the curse power in your body. However, this complete 7 transformation curse pill can completely eradicate the curse power in your body." Saiku's eyes were filled with excitement. He took the divine pill and knelt in front of Zhun. He said gratefully, "Thank you, Lord Zhua. Thank you. You deserve it. Go quickly," Zhuan said with a smile. Saiku solemnly cupped his fists at Zhuan and left the Phoenix people. Under Zhuan's gaze, no one in the Phoenix people dared to stop Saiku. Moreover, Zhuan also knew that once Saiku left the Phoenix people with Saiku's powerful talent, it would be extremely difficult for the Phoenix people to find Saiku in the future. After Saiku left, Zhuan sealed He Xian's freedom and began to set up a terrifying array around the Phoenix Purgatory. This time, Zhuowen's speed of setting up the grand array was extremely fast. Since he wanted to enter the Phoenix Purgatory, he naturally had to ensure his own safety. That was the most important thing. At this moment, in Phoenix Blood City, Feng Buming and the others, who were trapped in the 12 Divine Fiends array, all had ugly expressions. They had received news from the Phoenix people that the main city of the Phoenix people had been attacked. Moreover, the ancestral temple in the main city had been destroyed and the hidden Phoenix blood pool was also taken away. What made Feng Buming and Xian Hui even more incredulous was that the initiator of all this was actually Zhuan. What's going on? That Zhuan was in the Bloodshed Tea House in Phoenix Blood City. When did he run to the Phoenix people? Feng Buming found it unbelievable. He Xian's face was cold as he looked at Uefu beside Feng Buming and said, "Buming, it seems that we have been fooled. The Zhuan hiding in the Bloodshed Tea House should be an insignificant doppelganger of that Zhuan. This clone merely borrowed the power of the 12 Overseer Divine Wraith formation to delay us, while his actual body circled around to launch a sneak attack on our Phoenix clan. All of this should have been planned by that bitch and Zhuowen. As soon as He Xian said this, Shui Hua and the other experts of the Phoenix people looked at Yuefu with unfriendly gazes. Yuefu's delicate body trembled as she quickly approached Feng Bumming and said, "Bumming, don't listen to their nonsense. How could I give you false information? The one who ambushed the Phoenix people should be someone else." Chapter 3267. 3 Great Arrays, Bumming. Yuefu looked at Feng Bumming in disbelief and hurriedly said, "Yuefu, whether you did it intentionally or not, you did help Zhuowen and gave us false information." Feng Bumming's gaze was as cold as ice. With a wave of his sleeve, a flame entered Yuefu's forehead. Yuefu didn't even make a sound before she fell to the ground and died. "Guardians, how long will it take for this great array to be broken?" Feng Bumming asked anxiously after erasing Yuefu's soul. "If we work together, it should take 3 days." He Xian said in a deep voice. "Then try to be as fast as possible. I'll contact the Phoenix Master now and inform the Phoenix people of everything that happened." Feng Bumming took out his communication jade talisman and sent a message. "The Phoenix Master's whereabouts are mysterious and he hasn't been in the clan for a long time. Are you sure he can receive your message?" Shui Hua said with a frown. "That's the only way now. After all, we can't rush back yet. Even if we break this great array and rush back, it will take 6 to 7 days. During this time, Zhuan might have already escaped." Feng Bumming said helplessly. "Wait, He Xian sent us a message saying that Zhuowen's purpose in coming to the Phoenix people is for a human called Mu Chenxue. Right now, and is trying to enter the Phoenix Purgatory." He Xian took out his communication jade talisman and glanced at it before hurriedly saying, "Mu Chenxue? This kid is actually looking for Mu Chenxue. Well done. If this kid enters the Phoenix Purgatory, that would be the best. Once he enters, he won't be able to come out." Feng Bumming sneered. "It seems that Zhuan doesn't know that Mu Chenxue has been taken away by the Grand Elder and the others. This is for the best. After this kid enters the Phoenix Purgatory, we won't be in a hurry. There's plenty of time." Shui Hua nodded. 5 days later, Yuan set up the last Transcendence Grand Formation, looking exhausted. In these 5 days, Yuan had successively set up 3 Grand Heaven Grade Grand Formations. They were the 12 Divine Fiends Grand Formation, the 10 Directional Cloud Annihilation Grand Formation, and the Heavenly Law Heavenly Toad Limitless Grand Formation. Moreover, Zhuan had strengthened all 3 of these Great Heaven Ascension formations. Their power was now comparable to that of a Great Heaven Ascension formation. These 3 Heaven Ascension Grand Formations were closely linked and placed around the Phoenix Purgatory. They complemented each other, and a slight change in one part could affect the whole situation. Their power was comparable to that of a Heaven Ascension Grand Formation in the late stage. Zhuan believed that no matter how many mid-stage Heavenly Ascension Realm fighters came, they would not be able to break this formation. Even if a late-stage Skirich Lord came, it would be difficult for him to break this formation in a short period of time. On the other hand, He Xian was trembling with fear as he watched from the side. He could clearly feel the terror of these 3 grand formations. As long as he entered the range of these grand formations, he would not be able to hold on for long before he was blasted into pieces. Zhuan lifted He Xian and released the shackles on him. He said, "Now open the Phoenix Purgatory." He Xian did not dare to disobey. In these 5 days, he had seen how terrifying Zhuan was. He knew that he was far from being a match for this freak. In front of this person, he would be courting death if he resisted. He Xian bit his finger, then pressed his palm against the wall of the tower that was covered in black flames. Zhuan was surprised to find that the black flames seemed to have a mind of their own. They did not attack He Xian. Instead, they separated into a gap big enough for a palm to fit in. The moment He Xian's palm pressed against the wall, his blood essence was crazily absorbed. Dense blood-red lines appeared on the black surface of the tower. When the blood-red lines covered the entire tower, He Xian's face was pale as he withdrew his hand. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. Zhuan did not pay attention to He Xian. Instead, he silently observed the changes in the tower. He saw that the blood-red lines on the surface of the tower began to gather together rapidly. Finally, they gathered at the bottom of the tower, in front of Juan, forming a blood-red vortex that could fit a person. How dare you run amok in the Phoenix people and kill our Phoenix people? At this moment, outside the main city of the Phoenix people, a thunderous voice sounded. Juan raised his head and looked outside the main city. He saw a flying divine artifact rushing towards him. On the deck of the flying divine artifact, Feng Buming was standing at the front. On both sides of Feng Buming were the two guardians of Xuanhua. Feng Buming's eyes were filled with blazing killing intent as he stared fixedly at Zhuowen. He wished he could appear beside Zhuowen right now and kill him. Unfortunately, Zhuowen would not give Feng Buming this opportunity. Idiot! Zhuowen only said this sentence before he stepped into the blood-red vortex. Soon, the blood-red vortex disappeared. However, the moment the blood-red vortex disappeared, Zhuowen threw out a formation flag. The moment the formation flag landed outside the Phoenix Purgatory, the three formations that Zhuowen had carefully set up were immediately activated. A terrifying killing intent soared into the sky, and waves of formation energy swept out like waves. He Xian, who was still beside the undying bird Purgatory, had a look of fear in his eyes. He screamed as he was drowned by the energy of the array. His entire body collapsed into countless blood mist, and he couldn't be more dead. When Feng Buming and the others rushed to the Phoenix Purgatory, the last thing they saw was He Xian being crushed into powder by the three heavenly-level killing formations. And I, Feng Buming, swear that I will peel off your skin, pull out your tendons, and pull out your soul. I will burn you in the divine fire forever and suffer all the pain in the world. I will make you suffer a fate worse than death. Feng Buming stopped in front of the three great formations. He could only watch helplessly as He Xian died in front of them. The anger in his eyes was almost surging. The two guardians of the profound fire and the 7 fire gods behind them were also furious. This Zhuowen was too arrogant. He dared to kill He Xian in front of them. This was a ruthless slap to their faces. Xuehua, break the formation with me. He Xian did not say anything, but the killing intent on his body was the strongest among all of them. He called out to Xuehua and exploded with all his strength, attacking the three great formations in front of him. Xuehua naturally did not want to fall behind. He and He Xian cooperated very well. Together, they exploded with terrifying energy. However, the moment the two of them attacked the great formations, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. There was no movement at all. Instead, from the three great formations, there was a surging wave of counterforce energy. It bombarded the two of them, causing them to fly backward and crash onto the ground in a sorry state. Puchi. The two guardians of the profound fire spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. Their faces were pale. What kind of great formation is this? How can it be so powerful? Feng Buming calmed down, but his eyes were full of shock. The two guardians of the profound fire were experts in the middle stage of the Master of Heaven. They were seriously injured by the counterforce of the formation. These are three Master of Heaven-level great formations, and they complement each other. The two of us can't do anything to them at all. I'm afraid only the Phoenix Master can break this formation. Xuehua's eyes were filled with shock and anger. The Phoenix Master has received my news. He is a guest at the Sorcerer Tribe. He should be back soon. Feng Buming said calmly. The Phoenix Master is back. That's great. The two guardians of the profound fire and the other 7 fire gods were surprised when they heard this. Chapter 3268. SS Blackheart Sea of Fire. The moment Zhuowen entered the Phoenix Purgatory, he immediately felt a cold energy attack him. He opened his eyes and immediately found that what appeared in front of him were endless black flames. These flames were not hot at all. Instead, they were filled with the coldness and gloominess of a world of ice and snow. Around the black flames was a passageway that was not very wide. This passageway was very deep, and no one knew where the end was. Zhuowen unleashed his Pangu sacred body. His entire body emitted a crystal-clear light as he resisted the black flames that were rushing towards him. It's so cold. The moment the black flames invaded his body, Yuan shivered and felt a bone-chilling cold. At the same time, the black flames spread all over his body and kept burning. Although it gave him a cold feeling, his body was burned black by the flames. It looked extremely terrifying. Fortunately, Zhuowen's Pangu's sacred body was extremely hard and unusual. In addition, he had a strong recovery ability, so he resisted the powerful black flames and walked into the depths of the passageway. After about half an hour, Yuan walked out of the end of the passageway and found that the line of sight in front of him was many times wider. There's actually a small world inside the Phoenix Purgatory. Zhuan looked ahead and found that it was a boundless wasteland. However, there was an endless sea of black flames burning on the wasteland. The entire world was filled with a cold and strange atmosphere. Zhuan jumped into the wasteland and was immediately drowned by the surrounding sea of black flames. Sizzle! Zhuan could clearly hear that his body was being burned in the sea of black flames. The sound it made was rather ear-piercing. He found that the flames in the sea of black flames were much more terrifying and powerful than the black flames in the passageway. He could barely resist them. While resisting the black flames, Zhuowen's eyes were rather blank. He was not familiar with the small world inside the Phoenix Purgatory at all. He only saw that it was filled with a sea of fire, and he could not even identify the direction. Suddenly, Zhuowen saw a figure crawling with difficulty several hundred meters in front of him. When he got closer, he realized that it was a charred human figure. The strange thing was that even though the human figure was clearly charred, its entire body was trembling violently as if it was suffering from a severe cold. From the charred silhouette, Yuan could tell that it was a man. Save me. The charred figure struggled to raise its head, looked at Zhuowen, and let out a pleading sound. Zhuowen helped him up. He placed his right hand on his shoulder and used the profound creation mysterious light. The power of the profound light covered his entire body like a thin veil, blocking the surrounding black flames. Although it was barely able to block them, it made his situation much better. Zhuowen took out a divine healing pill and fed it to the person. The moment this person saw the healing pill, his eyes lit up and he couldn't wait to consume it. The miraculous thing was that after consuming the divine pill, the charred skin on the surface of this person began to gradually recover and dark blue scales grew out. Fellow Taoist, we can't stay in this sea of black flames for long. Take me out of this sea of black flames first. After this person recovered a little, his speech became much clearer. He pointed in a direction and said to Zhuowen. Zhuowen nodded and supported this person. He summoned his flying divine tool, but was quickly stopped by this person. Fellow Taoist, this is the Phoenix Purgatory. You can't use flying divine tools, and you can't fly here. Otherwise, flames that are even more terrifying than this sea of black flames will fall from the sky. At that time, no one will be able to save you. This person hurriedly said. Hearing this, Yuan was surprised. He put away his flying divine tool, carried this person on his back, and quickly rushed in the direction that this person pointed. This person was lying on Zhuowen's back, but he was getting more and more alarmed. The Sea of Black Flames was an extremely terrifying and dangerous place in the Phoenix Purgatory. Very few people could last more than half an incense stick of time in the Sea of Black Flames. And now, Zhuan, who was carrying him on his back, was not only running steadily in the Sea of Black Flames, but he also didn't seem to be affected by the corrosion of the black flames here. Not long after, Yuan saw a high ground not far in front of him. This high ground was generally dozens of feet higher than the wasteland he was in. Although the high ground was also filled with black flames, relatively speaking, it was much thinner than this place. And the low ground here, compared to the high ground, looked a bit like an endless sea of black flames. After Zhuan jumped onto the high ground, he clearly felt that the surrounding black flames were much weaker. If it was said that he was barely able to resist in the sea of black flames, then on this high ground, these black flames gave him the feeling of scratching an itch. Zhuan put down the person on his back, and only then did he realize that this person's injuries had already recovered by quite a bit. Dark blue scales had grown all over his body. Seeing this person, Yuan was clearly stunned. This was because he was very familiar with this person. He was actually from the mermaid race. Speaking of which, he had killed many mermaids in the celestial battlefield back then. No, he quickly calmed down. This mermaid's cultivation could only be considered average, probably only a half-step Genesis Lord. This person in front of him should have been captured by the Phoenix people long ago and thrown into this Phoenix purgatory. He probably didn't know what Zhuowen had done to the mermaid race. Thank you for saving my life, fellow Taoist. My name is Wu Rui, and I'm from the mermaid race. May I know your name, fellow Taoist? This mermaid hurriedly cupped his fists toward Zhuowen, his eyes filled with gratitude and respect. Zhuowen's aura was stronger than his, and he guessed that he should be a Genesis Lord. He was naturally extremely grateful that such an expert was willing to save him. Zhuowen nodded. Just as he was about to ask this mermaid about the Phoenix Purgatory, he couldn't help but frown. This was because he saw two figures walking out from behind a huge rock in front of him. Sacred Marten tribe? These two figures were a man and a woman. These two people looked almost exactly the same as humans. The only difference was that they had marten tails behind them. Zhuowen immediately thought of the Sacred Marten tribe. These two people from the Sacred Marten tribe weren't weak. They were both early-stage Genesis Lords and were much stronger than Wu Rui. When Zhuowen saw these two people from the Sacred Marten tribe, he immediately knew that Wu Rui had been chased into the sea of black flames by these two people. If he hadn't saved him in time, Wu Rui would definitely have died in the sea of black flames just like that. Wu Rui, you actually managed to come out alive after escaping into the sea of black flames. Your dog life is not small. The man from the Sacred Marten tribe walked over slowly and stared coldly at Wu Rui. After he finished speaking, he looked at Zhuowen with a slightly fearful gaze. Fellow Taoist, we are from the Tianluo sect. I'm sure you know the name of the Tianluo sect. If you don't want to die, it's best that you don't interfere in our matters. Now scram. After saying that, the man and woman completely ignored Zhuowen and headed straight for Wu Rui. It seemed like they believed that this person wouldn't cause any trouble after mentioning the Tianluo sect. Zhuowen's gaze was cold. He originally didn't want to cause any trouble. He couldn't be bothered with the grudges between this man and Wu Rui. He only wanted to understand the region of the Phoenix Purgatory. He could ask Wu Rui and these two people. However, this man from the Sacred Marten tribe had offended him and even asked him to scram. Did he think that Zhuowen was an idiot? I've already given the divine medicine to the sect master. Why does the sect master still want to kill me? Wu Rui slowly retreated, his eyes filled with unwillingness. Blame yourself for knowing too much. That divine medicine is very important. The sect master doesn't allow anyone to leak it. He only believes in dead people. Therefore, your death is the best choice. The man and woman surrounded Wu Rui from the left and right. Their voices were filled with mockery and laughter. Unfortunately, their laughter quickly froze as two streaks of sword light shot out from between their brows. Chapter 3269. Ingrate Wu Rui was stunned. Then he saw the sword light that pierced through the man and woman land beside Zhuowen, revealing two divine swords. He hurriedly knelt on the ground and thanked him. Thank you, Lord Zhuo, for your help. Zhuowen waved his hand and said, It's just a small matter. Now, I want to ask you, in this undying bird purgatory, have you heard of Muchenshue? At this point, Zhuowen's expression was slightly nervous. Wu Rui's gaze was blank. He shook his head and said, I have never heard of Muchenshue. At least, I have never heard of this name in the outer layer of the purgatory. This undying bird purgatory is divided into an outer layer and an inner layer? Zhuowen asked. Wu Rui's gaze was strange. He did not expect Zhuowen to not know this. Could it be that the latter was a newcomer who had just entered the undying bird purgatory? Zhuo, you are right. The undying bird purgatory is indeed divided into an outer layer and an inner layer. The outer layer is very large. Normally, the Phoenix people would imprison criminals who have not committed serious crimes in the outer layer. The outer layer is also the place with the most criminals. These criminals gather in a canyon where the black flames are the weakest. They occupy the territory in the canyon and form three major forces. These three forces are the Tianluo sect, the Blood Rock sect, and the Bai Luo sect. The two people who chased after me just now were from the Tian Luo sect. The inner layer is the deepest part of the Undying Bird Purgatory. It is used to imprison criminals who have committed serious crimes in the eyes of the Phoenix people. The area is much smaller than the outer layer. Moreover, the black flames in the inner layer are even more terrifying than the Black Heart Sea of Flames. Most of the criminals imprisoned in the inner layer could not withstand the black flames and died. Wu Rui had just finished speaking when Zhuan grabbed Wu Rui's shoulder and said excitedly, "Tell me the location of the inner layer." "Lord Zhua, you are not planning to enter the inner layer, are you? I advise you to give up on this idea," Wu Rui said. But Zhuan calmed down and asked in a deep voice. "Between the outer layer and the inner layer of the Undying Bird Purgatory is the Undying Bird Soul. The Undying Bird Purgatory suppresses the Undying Bird is an ancient divine beast. It is said that it was defeated by the ancestor of the Phoenix people's ancestors and was trapped here. In ancient times, this divine beast Undying Bird was a terrifying expert at the peak of Lord Tong Tian. Although only a trace of its soul is left, it still has the power of Lord Tong Tian. Many undyings the Undying Bird souls Undying Bird, birds, undying, 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 undyings, undyings, and undyings, undying, undying. If you lie you in God, undying if you rui. It's too dangerous, Wu Rui advised. Wu's, to the uni, us. Zhuowen's 4. Wu Rui's gaze flickered and he said, "Lord Zhua, how about this? Follow me back to the canyon first. The bird is. Although I've never heard of the person you're looking for, it doesn't mean others don't know. Maybe the person you're looking for is in the outer layer and not the inner layer. Wouldn't you be going to the inner layer for nothing, and it's so dangerous?" Zhuowen frowned slightly. He had a nagging feeling that Wu Rui was eager for him to enter the canyon colony. However, on second thought, he felt that Wu Rui was right. There were quite a number of prisoners in the outer layer. It was impossible for Wu Rui to know everyone. "Lead the way." Zhuowen nodded. Seeing that Zhuowen had agreed, Wu Rui's eyes lit up with excitement, and he quickly led the way. The bird purgatory was far from the Black Heart Sea of Flames. The two of them walked for half a day before finally arriving at the bird purgatory. The bird purgatory was surrounded by black flames. It was hundreds of feet tall and looked quite majestic. After entering the bird purgatory, Zhuan clearly felt that the flames in the bird purgatory were much weaker than the outside world. The uncomfortable feeling in his body completely disappeared in the bird purgatory. "Wu Rui, you're very bold. You've clearly been chased out of the bird purgatory, but you still dare to come back." The instant Zhuowen and Wu Rui entered the bird purgatory, 7 or 8 people immediately surrounded them. The person in the lead was a middle-aged man with yellow hair growing on his face. It was impossible to tell what tribe he was from. However, this middle-aged man's aura was much stronger than the sacred Marten tribe couple from before. He was actually a mid-stage Genesis lord. Wu Rui glanced at Zhuowen beside him, and he was clearly much more confident. He stepped forward and said, "In Zhua, I, Wu Rui, am loyal and devoted to the Tian Luo sect, and I'm even more loyal to the sect master. You've tried to kill me time and time again. What's the meaning of this?" Ingzhua looked at Wu Rui in surprise. In his impression, Wu Rui was a cowardly fellow who didn't even dare to let out a fart in front of him. Today, he actually dared to talk back to him. Also, he remembered that he had sent a sacred Marten tribe couple to pursue him. With their strength, killing Wu Rui was more than enough. However, Wu Rui had returned alive, while the sacred Marten tribe couple had disappeared without a trace. This made Ingzhua's gaze fall on Zhuowen, who was beside Wu Rui. He believed that given Wu Rui's cultivation, he was simply no match for the sacred Marten tribe couple. It was very likely that someone had helped Wu Rui. This person was undoubtedly the young man who had returned with Wu Rui. Zhuowen looked at Wu Rui coldly. He finally understood why the latter had been so eager to invite him to the bird purgatory valley. It turned out that he wanted him to be Wu Rui's free fighter. Zhuowen sneered in his heart. He had saved Wu Rui's life from a sea of black flames and even helped Wu Rui get rid of the sacred Marten tribe couple. This was already considered extremely benevolent. However, not only was Wu Rui not grateful, but he actually wanted to use him as a free fighter. This made Zhuan have no good impression of Wu Rui at all. Zhuan looked at Ying Zhua and said indifferently, "I have no interest in participating in the matters of the Tianluo sect." When Zhuan said this, Wu Rui's expression changed slightly. He knew that Zhuan was unhappy that he wasn't standing on his side. Ying Zhua looked at Zhuan with some wariness. He could sense that Zhuan's aura was very powerful. It was at least the aura of a late-stage god of creation. This person's cultivation was even more powerful than his, so Ying Zhua naturally didn't want to provoke him. Now that he heard that Zhuan wasn't willing to interfere in the matters of the Tianluo sect, Ying Zhua's eyes lit up. He cupped his fists at Zhuan and immediately ordered his subordinates behind him, "Take down Wu Rui." Wu Rui hurriedly retreated. Unfortunately, Ying Zhua personally attacked and slapped him into the ground, causing him to almost vomit blood. Several subordinates immediately restrained Wu Rui and restrained him. "You ungrateful bastard. The reason I gave you the remaining blood rain yellow sand leaf is so that you can be my bodyguard and protect my life. Previously, you helped me kill the sacred Marten tribe couple who were chasing after me. Now that I've been captured by Ying Zhua, you want to stand by and do nothing because you're afraid of the power of the Tianluo sect? You're simply shameless." Wu Rui shouted as he glared at Zhuan with hatred in his eyes. Zhuan was stunned. When had he ever accepted Wu Rui's blood rain yellow sand leaf? Instead, he was the one who had let Wu Rui consume a precious healing pill and even helped him get rid of the people chasing after him. Now, this guy was actually accusing him of being ungrateful. Chapter 3270. Tianluo sect as expected. The moment Wu Rui said that, Ying Zhua, who was planning to return home, narrowed his eyes and looked coldly at Zhuan. However, after hesitating for a while, Ying Zhua did not attack Zhuan in the end. Although Zhuan's aura was also that of a god of creation, he was still a late-stage god of creation. He was one minor realm higher than Ying Zhua. Ying Zhua knew very well that even if he attacked, he would not be Zhuan's match. Thus, he resisted the urge to attack. "Let's go," Ying Zhua ordered and was about to leave with Wu Rui when Zhuan stopped him. "Fellow cultivator, do you have any instructions?" Ying Zhua asked as he stared at Zhuan cautiously. "I would like to ask where the inner layer of the Phoenix Purgatory is. I hope you can give me some pointers," Zhuan said as he cupped his hands. Ying Zhua's eyes flashed, but he smiled and said, "If you want to go to the inner layer, you can definitely find me. Our sect master has passed through the inner layer before, so he knows it like the back of his hand. If you really want to enter the inner layer, you can follow me to the Tianluo sect and find our sect master. Of course, you can't go wrong." Zhuan looked at Ying Zhua. He could guess what Ying Zhua was planning, but he did not care. He even dared to challenge a powerful race like the Phoenix people. Would he be afraid of a mere Tianluo sect formed by the prisoners of the Phoenix Purgatory? "Alright, I'll go with you to meet your sect master." Out of Ying Zhua's expectations, Zhuan agreed very readily. Good. Our Tianluo sect will definitely not disappoint you. I'm Ying Zhua of the Tianluo sect. May I know your name?" When Ying Zhua heard that Zhuan was willing to go to the Tianluo sect with him, he immediately became much more enthusiastic. Zhuan said calmly. Brother Zhuan, come with me. Our Tianluo sect is not far from the entrance of the canyon." Ying Zhua did not mind Zhuan's attitude. With a hearty laugh, he led Zhuan into the depths of the canyon. His 7 to 8 subordinates followed behind with Wu Rui in tow. Not long after, Zhuan found an extremely wide open space in the depths of the canyon. What surprised Zhuan was that this open space was not invaded by any black flames. Other than the thin heavenly energy here, there was not much difference between the environment here and the outside world. This was an extremely rare place in the undying bird purgatory. In the open space, there were many buildings, and Zhuan found that the periphery of these buildings was basically set up with array formations. Moreover, he clearly discovered that the buildings on the open space were divided into 3 areas. He knew that these 3 regions should be the territories of the 3 major forces in the outer layer. As for the three great powers in the outer layer, he had heard from Wu Rui that they were the Tianluo sect, the Blood Rock sect, and the Jade Drop sect. Ingzhou brought them to the region closest to the outer layer. He knew that this should be the Tianluo sect's region. There were many foreign races in the Tianluo sect's region. In this region, they moved freely. Some set up stalls to trade, some talked and laughed, and some sparred. Ingzhou brought Zhuowen and the rest directly to the most magnificent pavilion in this region. Outside the pavilion, Ingzhou waved his hand to the 7 to 8 subordinates behind him and said, "Take Wu Rui into the dungeon." The 7 to 8 subordinates naturally did not dare to disobey. Even Wu Rui was powerless, like a living corpse. He actually regretted returning to the canyon. With his strength, he could still barely survive outside the canyon. However, if he entered the canyon now, he would definitely die. His original plan was to rely on Zhuowen as a shield to block the experts of the Tianluo sect. Of course, if Zhuowen was unable to block it, he could also secretly escape. However, he never expected that Zhuowen would actually not play by the rules and directly cut ties with him, causing him to be captured by Ingzhou. Now, he was clear that his following fate would be very miserable. Before leaving, Wu Rui shot a venomous glance at Zhuowen, a trace of perverted pleasure rising in his heart. Although he was dead for sure, he knew that this Zhuowen's outcome would likely be even more miserable than his. "Zhuowen, actually, I have to thank you. Back then, I almost died in the Blackheart Fire Sea. However, that healing divine pill that you gave me allowed me to recover from my injuries in a short period of time. That divine pill is truly too miraculous. The Phoenix Purgatory does not have this kind of divine pill. Speaking of which, you can also be considered my savior." Before leaving, Wu Rui laughed loudly as he said these words. Unfortunately, just as Wu Rui finished speaking, his glabella was pierced by a burst of energy. He stared fixedly at Zhuowen, his eyes filled with disbelief. "Since you said that I am your savior, then now I want to take back this kindness." Zhuowen's indifferent voice rang out. Wu Rui's eyes revealed a look of regret. He should not have said such words at the end of his life that were digging his own grave. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Ingzhuo's eyes suddenly burst forth with light. His gaze toward Zhuowen became even more fervent. He did not care about Wu Rui who had been killed. They had originally planned to kill Wu Rui. Being killed by Zhuowen was no different from being killed by them. What he was mainly concerned about was the miraculous healing divine pill that Wu Rui had mentioned. He was very clear that a healing divine pill that could heal Wu Rui's injuries in a short period of time was at least a Genesis-level divine pill. Such a divine pill was already very rare in the prehistoric heavenly realm, not to mention a place like the Phoenix Purgatory. Brother Zhuo, wait for a moment in the hall. I will go and inform the sect master now. I believe the sect master will be here very soon." Ingzhuo's attitude toward Zhuowen became even more enthusiastic and eager. Zhuowen nodded and strode into the hall. The moment he entered the hall, Zhuowen's eyes burst forth with coldness. However, they quickly returned to normal and he calmly sat on a chair beside him. Ingzhuo was very satisfied with Zhuowen's performance. After bidding farewell to Zhuowen, he left the hall. The moment Ingzhuo left, Zhuowen waved his sleeves and took out a pile of beast bone array discs. His hands formed a seal, and instantly, array ripples appeared in the surroundings. The moment Zhuowen entered the hall, he sensed that there was a Genesis-level death trap array in the hall. A confinement-killing formation of this level was truly child's play to Zhuowen. He only spent 3 breaths of time to break through the formation and take complete control of it. Moreover, Zhuowen even modified this death trap array a little, forcefully raising its level to the creation level. After doing all this, Zhuowen put away the beast bone array discs and sat quietly on his seat again. Not long after, footsteps sounded from outside the hall. Immediately, he saw a middle-aged man bring Ingzhuo into the hall. Chapter 3271. Instant Kill. My young friend, sorry to keep you waiting. I am Hong Luo, the leader of the Tianluo sect. The middle-aged man with 7 colored eyes greeted Zhuowen warmly as soon as he entered the hall. He then took a seat across from Zhuan while Yingzhou stood silently beside the middle-aged man. Zhuan went straight to the point after some pleasantries. Hong Luo sect leader, I heard from my friend Yingzhou that you ventured into the inner area and are quite familiar with it. I wonder if you can tell me the exact location of the inner area and the situation there? Hong Luo laughed and said, the inner area is too dangerous. My young friend Zhuan, you don't have to consider going. Staying in the Tianluo sect is the best choice. Don't worry, I've always treated my subordinates fairly. Zhuowen's smile faded as he looked at Hong Luo coldly. Hong Luo wanted him to become a member of the Tianluo sect. Was he trying to force him to join the Tianluo sect? Hee, Hong Luo sect leader, you must be joking. I'm not here to join the Tianluo sect. I'm here for the exact location of the inner area of the Phoenix Purgatory. Also, I have something to ask Sect Master. I wonder if there's a human called Mu Chen Shui in your canyon? Zhuan asked. Hong Luo sect leader's smile faded after Zhuowen's rejection. He said indifferently, it seems that my young friend Zhuowen doesn't know how to appreciate kindness. As for the human, I've heard of her, but she's not in the outer area. It's said that she was imprisoned in the inner area by the great elder of the Phoenix people. When the human was imprisoned in the Phoenix Purgatory, the outer area was in an uproar. However, I'm not too sure about her name. Zhuowen's eyes flashed. It seemed that Mu Chen Shui was indeed not in the outer area but was imprisoned in the inner area. After all, Mu Chen Shui was a human. If she was in the outer area of the canyon, it would be easy for the foreign races to identify her. He could easily find out about Mu Chen Shui's whereabouts after entering the inner area. However, there was no news about Mu Chen Shui. It was obvious that Mu Chen Shui was not here. Zhuowen rose to his feet and cupped his fists at Hong Luo. In that case, Hong Luo sect master, please tell me the exact location of the inner chamber. This Zhuo will not let you provide such information for free. Zhuan knew that Hong Luo was the main divine elixir of the Phoenix Purgatory. He could see that in this undying bird purgatory, divine pills were many times more scarce than in the outside world. Perhaps even in this Tianluo sect, there weren't many reserves of divine pills. I see that fellow Taoist Zhuo is a straightforward person. How about this? If you can take out a bottle of Genesis divine elixir, I'll tell you the location of the inner area. Hong Luo said with a smile. Zhuan nodded and tossed out a jade bottle. There are 12 special-grade Supreme Divine Refining Demon Pills in here. They are mainly used to increase a creator's efficiency in absorbing heavenly Tao energy. Hong Luo took the jade bottle and examined it. He couldn't hide the wild joy in his eyes. Hong Luo sect leader, now it's time to tell me the location of the inner area of the Phoenix Purgatory. Zhuowen said calmly. Hong Luo calmed down and took out a jade slip. He engraved something on it for a while before tossing it to Zhuowen and said, this jade slip contains the location of the inner layer that I have drawn. The inner layer is actually not far from the gorge. Zhuowen took the jade slip and studied it for a while. Then he cupped his fists at Hong Luo and left the hall. However, in the process of Zhuowen leaving the hall, his mind was completely focused on Hong Luo. Hong Luo's cultivation wasn't low. He should be an early-stage Lord of Creation. He'd thought that Hong Luo would definitely use the death trap formation in the hall to attack him after seeing him take out the divine elixir. Unfortunately, Hong Luo didn't do anything until Zhuowen was far away. After leaving the Tianluo sect, Zhuowen headed straight for the route drawn in the jade slip. After Zhuowen left the Tianluo sect, Hong Luo and Yingzhou also left the Tianluo sect. The two of them went in different directions, but the general direction was the same. But hasn't Hong Luo been in seclusion all this time? Why did he come out now and leave the canyon? Not long after Hong Luo left the canyon, two figures shot out from the Blood Rock sect and the Jade Sky sect. These two alien race experts had auras similar to Hong Luo's. They were both early-stage lords of creation. Moreover, their status in the canyon wasn't low. They were respectively the Blood Rock sect's master, Shueshi, and the Jade Sky sect's master, Huang Quanzi. Let's follow them and take a look. Hong Luo is extremely cunning. If there aren't any benefits, then it's impossible for him to leave the canyon and suffer. Shueishi's eyes were different from ordinary people. They were filled with terrifying threads of blood, and his voice was terrifyingly low. But we must be careful if we follow them. We must not allow that old fellow Hong Luo to notice us. As soon as Huang Quanzi finished speaking, he vanished on the spot with Shueshi. In next to no time, Huang Quanzi and Shueshi arrived at a dangerous gorge. They hid at the entrance of the gorge while their divine senses silently stretched into the gorge. They noticed Hong Luo and Hong Zhuo were standing within the gorge, and a young man that was very unfamiliar to them was standing before them. The two of them glanced at each other. They knew that the reason Hong Luo and Hong Zhuo had left was probably because of this young man. They just didn't know why Hong Luo had taken a fancy to this young man. Both of them didn't act rashly and alert the young man, and they lay dormant silently while observing the situation within the gorge. At this moment, within the gorge, Zhuowen's expression was extremely gloomy. He looked at Hong Luo and Hong Zhuo before he said coldly, "Why did you give me a fake map?" Zhuowen moved forward according to the route on the jade slip, and he finally arrived at the gorge here. However, he noticed that this gorge was completely empty, and there was no entrance to the inner area at all. So, he knew that Hong Luo had deceived him. After that, Hong Luo led Hong Zhuo into the gorge. The corners of Hong Zhuo's mouth were filled with ridicule as he said, "You're so stupid. I really don't know how you survived until now. Could it be that you don't know that wealth shouldn't be exposed? You ought to have many divine pills in your possession, right? Hand over your spirit ring, and I'll leave your corpse intact and give you a swift death." Zhuowen started laughing instead and said, "Both of you really want the divine pills in my possession. A man whose heart is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. It's very easy for both of you to choke on your desire to take my spirit ring. You mean you won't hand it over?" Hong Zhuo licked his lips as he stomped with his right foot, and he flashed toward Zhuowen like an arrow that left the bow. At the instant Hong Zhuo flashed out, Hong Luo moved as well, and he flashed out from another direction to launch a pincer attack against Zhuowen. Even though Hong Luo's cultivation was stronger than Zhuowen's, he didn't be careless in the slightest, and he utilized his full strength as soon as he attacked. Zhuowen's gaze was indifferent as he stood silently on the spot, and he turned a deaf ear to Hong Zhuo and Hong Luo who were getting closer and closer. "This fellow is courting death." Bloodstone and Huang Quanzi, who were hiding at the entrance of the gorge, were bewildered when they saw Zhuowen actually didn't move at all. Swish! When Hong Zhuo flashed to arrive before Zhuowen, the corners of his mouth revealed a savage smile. But in next to no time, his savage smile vanished as a blood-colored sword light pierced through the space between his brows. His expression froze as he directly collapsed to the ground and lost all signs of life. At the instant the blood-colored sword light annihilated Hong Zhuo, it immediately turned around in midair and flashed towards Hong Luo who was approaching. Hong Luo was caught off guard, and he was merely able to block 3 moves before the sword light found a flaw and pierced through the space between his brows as well, causing him to become a corpse. Hiss! Chapter 3272. Phoenix's Soul. Who's that? He's too terrifying. He annihilated Swan with a single move. He's at least a peak lord of creation, right? Could it be that he's an expert from the inner area? Bloodstone was horrified, and he hurriedly withdrew his divine sense and spoke with a trembling voice. Huang Quanzi was terrified to the point of withdrawing his divine sense as well. The scene from before was too shocking. Zhuowen hadn't moved at all, yet Hong Zhuo and Swan had been annihilated. Although the two of them thought highly of themselves, they were at most on par with Hong Luo. If they were to face this young man, they knew that their outcome would be no different than Swan's. "Let's leave quickly. We'll be in trouble if this senior notices us." Huang Quanzi spoke in a low voice. Bloodstone hurriedly nodded, so they intended to leave the gorge silently. But in next to no time, they noticed that there was an unusual force obstructing them from behind. They turned around and noticed to their shock that Tun was standing behind them with a grin on his face as he gazed at them. "Senior, we didn't mean to offend you. We just happened to pass by here." Bloodstone and Huang Quanzi knelt on the ground with a thump. They were very sensible and knew that with Zhuowen's strength, They would be courting death if they fled now, so the only way was to beg for mercy. The two of you are probably the masters of the Bloodstone sect and Jadefall sect, right? Moreover, you probably followed Swan and Hongjue here. Wen smiled faintly. Bloodstone and Huang Quanzi felt their scalps go numb, and they sighed dejectedly in the end. Senior is right. We are indeed the masters of the Bloodstone sect and Jadefall sect, and we followed Swan here. However, we didn't know about Senior beforehand, so we didn't join forces with Swan to deal with Senior. Zhuowen looked indifferently at Bloodstone and Huang Quanzi and said, "Get up. I don't intend to deal with the two of you. I just want to ask you about the route to the inner area." Bloodstone and Huang Quanzi heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts, and then they hurriedly withdrew jade slips from their spirit rings and fought to pass them to Jun. "Senior, this jade slip of mine has a very detailed map of the route. You can't go wrong with using it." Bloodstone smiled flatteringly and handed the jade slip to Jun. "Senior, the Bloodstone is flawed. In my jade slip, most of the areas of the Undying Bird Purgatory are recorded. It can be considered the most detailed map. Use mine." Huang Quanzi said fawningly. Zhuan put away their jade slips and looked through them one by one. He found that the maps in their jade slips were almost the same, but the map in Yellow Spring Z's jade slip was slightly more complete. After Zhuan chose Huang Quanzi's jade slip, he greeted the two and disappeared in a stream of light. Seeing Zhuan leave, Huang Quanzi and Bloodstone let out a sigh of relief. Zhuan gave them too much pressure. Looks like this senior isn't a prisoner from the inner layer. It's very likely that he's a prisoner that the Phoenix people have just captured. Otherwise, it's impossible that he doesn't even know where the inner layer is, Bloodstone guessed. Huang Quanzi nodded and said, "Between the outer layer and the inner layer is the soul of the Undying Bird. That's a terrifying existence that can even kill Lord Tong Tian. If this senior wants to enter the inner layer, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult, and he might even die." Bloodstone's eyes flickered, and he suddenly suggested, "Huang Quanzi, why don't we follow him and take a look? If this senior really dies to the soul of the Undying Bird, then his spirit ring will be ownerless, right?" Huang Quanzi's eyes lit up. Bloodstone was right. Zhuan was so powerful that he must have a lot of good things on him. This could be seen from the fact that Hong Luo was secretly following him. Although the two of them were no match for Zhuan, they could still take advantage of him. But if this senior finds out that we're following him, won't he be furious and kill us? Bloodstone was still worried. Huang Quanzi said in a low voice, "Wealth comes from danger. If we follow him from afar, no matter how powerful he is, he won't be able to find us. Moreover, if we're far enough away, even if he finds us, we'll still have time to escape." Bloodstone nodded when he heard that. He was already tempted. After the two of them finished their discussion, they rushed toward the entrance of the inner layer together. However, the two of them were very slow. They deliberately slowed down in order to put enough distance between them and Zhuan. In the end, the two of them stopped behind a mountain peak that was close to 10,000 meters away from the entrance of the inner layer. They saw that Zhuan had stopped at the entrance of the inner layer. Zhuan had already noticed Huang Quanzi and Bloodstone who were following him, but he didn't pay attention to them. Bloodstone and Huang Quanzi's cultivation levels were too low, and they posed no threat to him at all. He didn't care about these two small fries at all. At this moment, Zhuowen's entire attention was focused on the huge abyss in front of him, which was like a natural chasm. The abyss was extremely deep, and it was hundreds of meters wide. In the abyss, there were black flames that were much more intense than the surroundings. Before Zhuowen even got close to the abyss, he felt a deep chill coming from the flames in the abyss. His body spontaneously combusted, and his skin began to become charred, distorted, and deformed. If it weren't for his strong recovery ability, his body might have already collapsed. Zhuowen used the profound creation mysterious light to wrap around his body. Only then was he able to block the powerful corrosion of the black flames. Zhuan came to the edge of the abyss and looked across it. There he saw a deep path. On both sides of the path, there were red flames burning, forming a sharp contrast with the black flames in the abyss. Zhuan knew that the flames should be the phoenix fire. Behind the undying bird's soul, it opened up a path that even the undying bird's soul didn't dare to approach. As long as he crossed the abyss, he would be safe. Just as Juan was about to step out with his right foot, a sense of danger rose in his heart, and he quickly retreated. In the abyss, a black fire python swept out and rushed toward Juan at an extremely tricky angle. Juan snorted coldly, took out the thunder fire sword, and stood at the fire python's 7 inches away. The fire python collapsed with a bang. Whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, an extremely large number of fire pythons swept out of the abyss. The pitch-black flames burned on the surface of the fire pythons, mysterious and deep. Juan took a step forward, and the purple river swept out from the void and gathered around him. Under the power of the purple river, Juan's figure constantly flashed in the air, and his speed was extremely fast, dodging more and more fire pythons around him. And every time Juan leaped, the thunder fire sword, with terrifying thunder and fire energy, accurately stabbed the fire pythons 7 inches away. In just 50 breaths of time, the numerous fire pythons that swept out of the abyss were all destroyed by Juan's sword. Juan slowly landed on the ground and looked at the abyss in front of him with a serious gaze. He had a feeling that an extremely vast and cold force was sweeping up from the depths of the abyss at an extremely fast speed. Rumble! Suddenly, the cliffs on both sides of the abyss collapsed, and a huge black shadow swept straight into the sky, stopping thousands of feet above the ground. It spread its wings and flew high, and countless flames swept across the sky, creating a terrifying and spectacular black sea of fire. Juan slowly raised his head and looked at the sky, at the black shadow that covered the sun. It was a huge bird that was burning with black flames, and its sharp eyes were filled with deep black. Juan knew that this should be the undying bird's soul. Bang, bang, bang. The undying bird's soul's pressure was extremely terrifying, and the wasteland within a radius of millions of miles was swept by this pressure, spreading terrifying dust and wind. Chapter 3273. Unbelievable! It's the soul of the undying bird. How terrifying! Behind the mountain peak in the distance, Shueshi and Huangquanzi were almost blown away by the storm caused by the soul of the undying bird. After they barely managed to stabilize themselves, their eyes were filled with shock as they felt that it was unbelievable. This senior is finished. He's no match for the soul of the undying bird. Bloodstone and Huangquanzi shook their heads inwardly. They didn't think that Juan could really break through the soul of the undying bird and enter the inner layer. Everyone in the outer layer knew that as long as they could break through the soul of the undying bird and reach the other side, they could enter the inner layer. The prisoners in the inner layer also knew that as long as they could break through the soul of the undying bird, they could leave this damned place. However, countless prisoners in the inner layer had tried to leave over the years, but they had all died at the hands of the soul of the undying bird. Among them were many Master of Heaven experts. In the eyes of Bloodstone and Huangquanzi, although Juan was powerful and had killed Hongluo, he was at most a peak master of creation. Facing the soul of the undying bird, he was simply courting death. When the soul of the undying bird reached the highest point in the sky, Juan narrowed his eyes. He kicked off with his right foot, and a long purple river circled around him. His figure flickered in the air like a ghost. As his figure flickered, the wings of the undying bird's soul suddenly spread out. Suddenly, black flames swept out from the wings of the undying bird's soul and fell down. Juan was too fast. He quickly dodged the falling black flames. The energy of the black flames had condensed to a terrifying degree. When they landed on the ground, they blasted it into nothingness and fine powder. As Juan dodged, he summoned the Yama ghost diagram. Thick black fog swirled out. Juan pointed forward with his right hand. The first layer of the Yama ghost diagram opened, and dozens of ghost chains swept out. The ghost chains were extremely fast. They swept out in all directions and surrounded the soul of the undying bird. With a whoosh, the soul of the undying bird was completely trapped. The undying bird let out a furious howl. It actually felt intense pain from the ghost chains. It was so painful that it felt as if its soul was being stabbed by thousands of blades. It wanted to break free, but found that the ghost chains were getting tighter and tighter. It was impossible for it to break free. Zhuan endured the pain of the ghost chain's backlash. He knew that the ghost chain was a powerful method to deal with the soul. The soul of the undying bird didn't. The soul of the undying bird didn't the body. Only its soul was its soul. However, he also knew the soul of the undying bird was the ghost chains. It was the undying bird was the ghost bird? Therefore, he did not hesitate to open the second layer of the Yama ghost diagram. Four ferocious-looking evil spirits let out ear-piercing howls and rushed out toward the soul of the undying bird above. Boom, boom, boom. The soul of the undying bird was shocked and angry. It kept resisting, but under the restraint of the ghost chains, its strength was reduced to less than 10%. It was suppressed by the roar. Zhuan stopped on a broken stone and floated in the air. His face was pale, and his forehead was covered with cold sweat. He looked at the soul of the undying bird. The soul of the undying bird is really tenacious. It's trapped by the ghost faces and the roar. It's just at a disadvantage. Zhuan took a deep breath and took out the Ho-E Godly Bow and Ho-E Godly Arrow from the macro world. He pulled the bowstring to a half moon. A terrifying killing intent filled the whole space. The soul of the undying bird also felt the terrifying killing intent. It roared in fear and began to struggle violently. Terrifying black flames burst out like a chain explosion. It was extremely terrifying. Qi, Mei, Wang, and Liang, the four evil spirits, were sent flying by the terrifying black flames. They retreated continuously, all of them suffering from injuries. However, the roar didn't care about their injuries at all. They pounced crazily and attacked the soul of the undying bird. They forcibly stalled the soul of the undying bird. Yuan hesitated for a while. Then, he pulled the bowstring to 2/3. The power of the Ho-E Godly Arrow immediately increased by 100 times. After the blood of the golden crow was wiped off, the Ho-E Godly Bow's potential was fully unleashed. It was very difficult for Zhuan to pull the bowstring to a full moon. 2/3 was his limit. The Ho-E Godly Arrow left the bowstring and tore through the air with a deafening explosion. It finally rushed into the soul of the undying bird. Bang, bang, bang. The soul of the undying bird let out a deafening cry. The terrifying power of the Ho-E Godly Arrow created a terrifying explosion vortex on the soul of the undying bird. The soul of the undying bird struggled violently. The ghost chain on its body shook violently. Zhuan spat out a mouthful of blood. The ghost chain was related to his soul. When the ghost chain was damaged, his soul would naturally be affected accordingly. However, Zhuan could clearly see that the soul of the undying bird was growing dimmer and dimmer. Its aura was rapidly weakening. He knew that the Ho-E Godly Arrow had taken effect. He hurriedly swallowed 2 divine pills, one for healing and one for repairing the soul. Then, he took out 3 more Ho-E Godly Arrows. These were the other 3 Ho-E Godly Arrows he had found in the Eldritch Heaven realm. Zhuan knocked the 3 Ho-E Godly Arrows on the bowstring and pulled the bowstring to 2/3 again. Bush, bush, bush. The 3 arrows shot out at the same time. They turned into 3 streaks of blood-red light. With monstrous killing intent, they blasted into the soul of the undying bird. These 3 Ho-E Godly Arrows were stained with the golden crow's blood. Therefore, they were much weaker than the first Ho-E Godly Arrow. However, when the 3 Ho-E Godly Arrows were combined, they were indeed more powerful than the first Ho-E Godly Arrow. The soul of the undying bird let out a weak cry. After being pierced by the 3 Ho-E Godly Arrows, its enormous body was directly torn to pieces. Rumble! Just as the soul of the undying bird was about to collapse, it suddenly exploded. The ghost chains that surrounded him were affected by the terrifying explosive energy and were directly shattered. Qi Mei Wang smashed into the ground from midair. Her body was burning with deep black flames, as if she wanted to burn Qi Mei Wang into nothingness. Zhuan spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was unnaturally pale. Zhuan hurriedly took out the Yama ghost diagram. He collected the shattered ghost chain, demons and monsters, and the 4 Ho-E Godly Arrows that were scattered in the distance. With a flash, he rushed through the abyss in front of him and entered the blazing Great Path. Outside the mountain in the distance, Huang Quanzi and Bloodstone were completely stunned. The battle just now had happened too quickly. The soul of the undying bird had only used one move before it was killed by Zhu. This was simply too shocking. This senior, he killed the soul of the undying bird? Bloodstone, punch me and see if I'm dreaming. Huang Quanzi muttered to himself. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Chapter 3274. Inside the Phoenix blood pool, the blazing red path was wide and deep, as if it had no end. The moment Zhuowen entered the path, he immediately felt the power of the flames. They were no weaker than the black flames outside. In fact, they were even stronger. Zhuowen did not continue forward. Instead, he found a rather concealed pile of rocks by the side of the road. He hid in the pile of rocks and then set up a powerful concealment formation and defensive formation there. After the defensive array was set up, the terrifying fiery red flames in the surroundings were all blocked by the defensive array. Zhuowen also let out a soft sigh of relief. Splat. At this moment, Zhuowen's face was as pale as a dying patient. His sea of consciousness was like a bucket of paste. The side effects of the Yama demon portrait were too terrifying. At this moment, Zhuowen had a splitting headache, and he wanted to hit the ground with his head. Red blood was flowing out of his 7 orifices. Forcefully enduring the intense discomfort in his sea of consciousness, Zhuowen summoned the Great World. He turned the Great World into dust and attached it to the surface of a rock. Then he entered the Great World. In the Great World, on a small island in the center of the lake, Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxia silently guarded the Phoenix blood pool. They sat cross-legged and meditated. The holy maiden of the Phoenix people was standing by the door of the pavilion. Her beautiful eyes flickered, and she revealed a hesitant expression. She really wanted to snatch the Phoenix blood pool, but she didn't have even 1/10 of her strength left. The 99 Phoenix bodies' bloodline had been completely extracted by Zhun. Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxia were both very powerful. They were both peak god of creation stage powerhouses. In addition, not far from the small island in the center of the lake, the 3 divine swords led by the Thunderfire sword were also nearby. If she made any strange moves, she was very clear that she would die a miserable death. With a soft sigh, the holy maiden of the Phoenix people gave up on the idea of snatching the pool. This idea was completely unrealistic to her. Suddenly, a streak of light flew over from afar and landed on the small island in the center of the lake. Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxia sensed something amiss. They opened their eyes and stood up vigilantly. However, when they saw that the person who came was Zhun, their gazes softened a lot, but they soon revealed a look of bewilderment. This was because Zhun was in a very bad state. He was bleeding from his 7 orifices and his face was as pale as a ghost. He looked like a vengeful ghost. Lord Zhuo, what happened to you? Gui Ling was alarmed. Zhuowen's current state was simply too terrifying. He could not help but probe. Zhuowen did not pay any attention to Gui Ling and Yin Wuxia. Instead, he leaped into the Phoenix blood pool and said solemnly, "The 2 of you, stand guard for me in the Phoenix blood pool." With that, Zhuowen took out more than 10 bottles of healing divine pills and absorbed the Phoenix blood energy in the Phoenix blood pool. To the Phoenix people, the Phoenix blood pool was a pool that preserved the divine soul. The energy within the Phoenix blood pool had a powerful healing effect on the divine soul. Therefore, after Zhuowen's divine soul was damaged, the first thing he thought of was the Phoenix blood pool. As soon as he entered the Phoenix blood pool, Zhuowen immediately sensed a mysterious energy within the Phoenix blood pool. It gathered in his sea of knowledge and began to repair Zhuowen's shattered sea of knowledge and divine soul. A comfortable feeling rushed from Zhuowen's tailbone to his head. It was so comfortable that Zhuowen almost cried out. Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxia's eyes were full of solemnity. They were well aware of Zhuowen's strength. Even a Skirich expert wouldn't be able to easily injure Zhuowen. But now Zhun was so weak that he was almost on the verge of death. They really didn't know what kind of abnormal existence Zhuowen's opponent was. Although they were shocked, the 2 of them still dutifully guarded the Phoenix blood pool. They also glared fiercely at the Phoenix People's Saintess, who was standing by the door of the pavilion, with a strong sense of warning in their eyes. The Phoenix People's Saintess felt a lot more relaxed. When she saw that Juan was seriously injured, she knew that he must have been injured by the Phoenix People. Originally, when Juan destroyed the Phoenix People's ancestral shrine and the Phoenix blood pool, the Phoenix People's Saintess thought that Juan was so strong that no one in the Phoenix People could match him. But now, it seemed that she had thought too much. Juan was strong, but there was a limit to his strength. He wasn't a match for the true experts of the Phoenix People. The Phoenix People's Saintess felt a little regretful. If Juan was killed now, it would be great. Then, she could be discovered by the experts of the Phoenix People and escape from this great world. Time passed by. Juan, who was in the Phoenix blood pool, narrowed his eyes and absorbed the energy of the Phoenix blood pool as if he was drunk. As he continued to absorb the energy of the Phoenix blood pool, Juan found that his divine soul was not only repaired, but also strengthened. In addition, the energy of the Phoenix blood pool could be absorbed by the Pangu's sacred body and strengthened the latter's physique. His Pangu's sacred body had been promoted to the early 7-star level for a long time, but it showed no signs of improvement. He also knew that when the Pangu's sacred body was cultivated to such a level, it could only be improved by relying on the power provided by the ancestral sorcery venomous insects, unless it was a very high level of energy. Juan was pleasantly surprised that the energy of the Phoenix blood pool could improve his Pangu's sacred body. Juan also knew the origin of the Phoenix blood pool. The pool contained the essence and blood of the divine beast, the Phoenix. In ancient times, the Phoenix was an extremely powerful existence. Although it was not as famous as the 12 ancestral sorcerers, it was very difficult for the 12 ancestral sorcerers to defeat the Phoenix in terms of combat strength and bloodline. It was easy to imagine how precious and powerful the essence and blood of such a powerful existence was. It was not surprising that it could improve the level of Juan's Pangu's sacred body. 10 days later, the Phoenix blood pool, which was originally blood red, became as clear as water. Almost all of the Phoenix blood in the Phoenix blood pool had been absorbed by Juan. Juan slowly opened his eyes and jumped out of the pool. His eyes were full of excitement. After absorbing the entire Phoenix blood pool, Juan found that his Pangu's sacred body had loosened. He found that his Pangu's sacred body was not far from the middle 7-star level. Congratulations, Lord Jua. Your injuries are as good as new and your cultivation has improved. Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxia hurriedly bowed. The moment Juan jumped out of the Phoenix blood pool, the two of them could clearly feel that Juan's aura was sharper and stronger than before. You absorbed all the energy of the Phoenix blood pool? Juan nodded at Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxia. Then, he heard the Saintess of the Phoenix People's unfriendly voice from the pavilion door not far away. Juan looked coldly at the Phoenix People. His vast aura burst out and he said indifferently, "What? Saintess, do you have a problem with that?" The Saintess of the Phoenix People felt the impact of this powerful aura and could not help but take more than 10 steps back. Her pretty face was pale and bloodless. She quickly lowered her head and did not dare to speak. However, when the Saintess of the Phoenix People lowered her head, her eyes were full of resentment. She kept cursing in her heart. When Juan left this time, she hoped that he would die tragically in the hands of the Phoenix People. Juan no longer paid attention to the Saintess of the Phoenix People. He flipped his right hand and took out 2 divine pills. He handed them to Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxia and said, "These are Tai Chi energy gathering divine pills. They can help you advance to the Lord of Creation realm. You have done a good job protecting the Phoenix People. These 2 divine pills are your reward." Ghost Plume and Yin Wuxia took the divine pills and hurriedly bowed to express their gratitude. Chapter 3275. Snake-faced man. When Juan left the outside world and appeared in the pile of rocks, he saw a snake-faced man holding a snake-shaped halberd and constantly attacking the defensive array in front of him. When Juan appeared in the pile of rocks, the snake-faced man stopped and smiled sinisterly. "The master of the array is really inside. Come out and hand the array to me. I'll only cripple your cultivation and won't take your life." Juan narrowed his eyes. The snake-faced man wanted him to hand over the array and cripple his cultivation. This was too arrogant. Although the snake-faced man's cultivation was not bad, he was only a half-step master. In Zhuowen's eyes, he was just trash. This kind of trash dared to be arrogant in front of him. It was simply laughable. Seeing that Zhuowen did not speak, the snake-faced man said impatiently, "I'll give you one more chance. Get out. Otherwise, after I break the array, you won't even have your life." Zhuowen smiled and slowly withdrew the defensive and concealment arrays. This snake-faced man was not simple. He could see through his concealment array and attack his defensive array. Zhuowen said indifferently, "You're a prisoner in the inner layer? You don't have the right to know this kind of thing. You're very obedient, so I'll keep my promise. I won't kill you and will only cripple your cultivation." After the snake-faced man finished speaking, he stomped his right foot and shot out like a cannonball. In an instant he was in front of Zhuowen. The snake-faced man laughed sinisterly and quickly stabbed out with the snake-shaped halberd in his hand. In an instant, 4 halberd lights exploded and shot towards Zhuowen's limbs. The snake-faced man planned to cripple Zhuowen's limbs as soon as he came up. It could be seen how ruthless this person was. Zhuowen remained motionless as he punched out with his fist. The 4 halberd lights exploded as Zhuowen's fist landed on the snake-faced man's face in an instant. Pucci. The snake-faced man didn't expect that his attack would be destroyed so easily, so he wasn't prepared for Zhuowen's punch. A heavy punch landed on the snake-faced man's face. The snake-faced man spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with broken teeth. The snake-faced man heavily smashed onto the ground. His entire body twitched, and his entire face cracked and twisted. Bang! The snake-faced man roared furiously. Just as he was about to stand up, Zhuowen ruthlessly stomped on his chest. The powerful force hit the snake-faced man's body, and the snake-faced man's roar came to an abrupt stop, and he spat out another mouthful of blood. You. The snake-faced man was trembling all over, but his eyes were filled with fear. He had never thought that he would run into a tough opponent. However, this person's aura was clearly only that of a god of creation, yet his power was far superior to his own. He was able to crush him like a weakling. This was far too terrifying. "Now you should answer my question, right?" Zhuowen looked down at the snake-faced man beneath his feet, and the killing intent in his eyes was extremely dense. The snake-faced man's body trembled, and he hurriedly replied, "I am indeed a prisoner in the inner layer. 3 days ago, the power of the undying bird's soul was suddenly weakened to the extreme. Many powerful beings in the inner layer became restless and came to explore the undying bird's abyss. What was strange was that when they passed through the undying bird's abyss, the undying bird's soul didn't react. Thus, this news spread throughout the inner layer, and all of the prisoners trapped in the inner layer left the inner layer and entered the outer layer. I was also planning to leave the inner layer, but I just so happened to discover the fluctuations of your spell formation, so I tried to attack it. I didn't think that there really would be a spell formation here." Then, as you know, what happened next? The snake-faced man's eyes were filled with hope. He was afraid that Zhuowen would be ruthless and kill him. "I asked around in the outer layer. There is a human imprisoned in the inner layer. Do you know this?" Zhuowen asked. The snake-faced man hurriedly said, "Senior, you are wise. You even know this. There is indeed a human imprisoned in the inner layer, and this human is very powerful. I met this human once, but I didn't dare to provoke him." Zhuowen frowned slightly, feeling that something was wrong. He waved his sleeve and summoned Mu Chenshue's virtual image and said, "Is that human this woman?" The snake-faced man was stunned. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Senior, that human expert is not a woman, but a man. He calls himself Crepe Myrtle Star, and he is invincible in the inner layer. No one dares to provoke him." Many of us in the inner layer speculated that Crepe Myrtle Star's strength was enough to break through the protection of the undying bird's soul and leave the inner layer. However, he didn't leave and has been staying in the inner layer. Crepe Myrtle Star hasn't left and is still in the inner layer. Crepe Myrtle Star? Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He was surprised and happy. He was surprised that Mu Chenshue was not in the undying bird's purgatory, and happy that he met an old friend, Crepe Myrtle Star here. Take me to Crepe Myrtle Star. Otherwise, you'll die miserably on the spot right now." Zhuowen calmed down and spoke with a cold expression. The snake-faced man hurriedly nodded and bowed. Then he got up and led Zhuowen to the depths of the flaming avenue. Not long after they walked on the flaming avenue, two figures walked toward them. The two figures were a man and a woman. Their auras were extremely powerful. The man was as strong as a bear and had thick hair on his body. His aura was strong. He was actually an expert at the early stage of Tong Tian Master. The woman was enchanting and charming. Her beautiful cheeks were covered with white snake scales. Her lower body was a snake's tail. Her aura was slightly weaker than the man's, but similar to the snake-faced man, she should also be a half-step Tong Tian master. When the snake-faced man saw the two men, he was overjoyed and said, "Brother, sister-in-law, you still haven't left the inner area?" The strong man didn't care about Zhuowen at all. Instead, he looked at the snake-faced man and laughed loudly. "We had some things to deal with inside. Now that we're done, we naturally came out. On the other hand, didn't you leave earlier than us? Why did you turn back now?" The snake-faced man's face was gloomy. He glanced at Zhuowen behind him and said with a smile, "This is my friend. I'm taking my friend to the inner area to broaden his horizons. He hasn't seen the scenery of the inner area yet." The strong man and the snake woman narrowed their eyes and said meaningfully, "Since he's your friend, you take him to the inner area first. We'll meet in the outer area when the time comes." The snake-faced man hurriedly agreed. Then he led Zhuowen past the strong man and the snake woman. However, the moment he brushed past Zhuowen, the sturdy man suddenly threw out a punch, aiming for Zhuowen's vital point. Zhuowen sneered coldly in his heart. He did not plan on dodging at all. Instead, at the same time the strong man's fist blasted over, his right hand formed a claw and grabbed at the snake woman. The snake woman clearly did not expect that Zhuowen did not dodge and actually took the initiative to attack her. She was first stunned, then she immediately revealed a cold smile. Her snake tail suddenly swung, slamming onto Zhuowen's hand claw. Unfortunately, Zhuowen was not an ordinary person. He grabbed onto the snake tail and immediately exerted force. The snake woman was directly grabbed by Zhuowen. Immediately, Zhuowen swung, smashing the snake woman's entire body onto the strong man's fist. Crack! The strong man's all-out punch smashed viciously onto the snake woman's chest. The snake woman emitted a shrill scream, her sternum directly caved in. A mouthful of fresh blood spewed out. The strong man was frightened until he hurriedly pulled back, his expression changing drastically. Chapter 3276. Goodbye, Crepe Myrtle Star Lord. The burly man was afraid of accidentally injuring the lamia, so he was fearful. Zhuowen caught a loophole, and he suddenly swung the lamia's tail and smashed it into the burly man's chest. The burly man and the lamia screamed at the same time as they were sent flying. Zhuowen, on the other hand, had his hands behind his back. Like an old tree that had taken root, he stood firmly on the spot. A sword light emerged from his body and shot out explosively. This sword light carried with it the energy of thunder and fire that soared into the sky. It flew out and instantly pierced through the space between the brows of the burly man and the lamia. The lamia died on the spot, but the burly man reacted quickly and moved away from the space between his eyebrows. The thunder-fire sword pierced through the man's chest and nailed him to the ground. The snake-faced man was so scared that he sat on the ground, his entire body trembling. He looked at Zhuowen with eyes full of fear, as if he was not looking at Zhuowen himself, but a ferocious and terrifying devil. Zhuowen ignored the snake-faced man and slowly walked to the burly man's side. The burly man's body trembled as he hurriedly begged for mercy. "Sir, I offended you just now. I hope you can be magnanimous and let me go like a fart. There are many people who want to kill me, but I'm basically alive and well now. As for the people who want to kill me, they've all gone to hell. I think you should go there and take a look." Zhuowen's voice was calm. Under the terrified gaze of the burly man, he waved his sleeve and a spiral of strength chi shot out and entered the space between the burly man's eyebrows. The burly man's eyes were wide open as he died with everlasting regret. Zhuan shot out a stream of divine fire and burned the corpses of the lamia and the burly man to ashes. He then turned to look at the snake-faced man who was already at a loss from fear and said, "Continue leading the way." The snake-faced man was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He scrambled to his feet and hurriedly led the way in front of Zhuan. This time, the snake-faced man could be said to be much more attentive and flattering. When facing Zhuan, he was even more respectful and exaggerated than when facing a god. Very quickly, the two of them walked past the blazing path and entered a blood-red cliff. At the bottom of the cliff, there was an open space with bloodstones arranged in an uneven pattern. "My lord, this is where the prisoners in the inner layer live. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign is in the southeast corner. That is the forbidden area of the inner layer. It is where Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign cultivates. None of us dare to disturb such a ruthless person." At the mention of Crepe Myrtle Star, the snake-faced man's face was filled with fear and reverence. Zhuan and the snake-faced man arrived at the southeast corner of the open space and discovered that there was a deep blood-red cave in the southeast corner. When Zhuan was about to enter the bloody cave, he immediately sensed that something was wrong. At the entrance of the bloody cave, there were waves of ripples, and soon after, waves of bloody spirals rushed out and bombarded Zhuan's vital acupoints. With a wave of his sleeve, Zhuan blocked all the bloody spirals. However, it was not easy for Zhuan to block them. These bloody spirals were very powerful. They actually broke through the creation mysterious light that covered his body and pierced through his body, leaving behind terrifying bloody holes. Zhuan hurriedly retreated, and the bloody spiral at the entrance of the cave also disappeared. Zhuan's gaze was solemn. The bloody spiral that appeared at the entrance of the cave was not formed by some kind of great formation. Instead, it was left behind by some kind of powerful energy at the entrance of the cave. If someone barged into the cave, it would activate this energy to attack the intruder. The terrifying bloody holes on Zhuan's body gradually healed under his powerful recovery ability, but his expression was somewhat uncertain. The energy at the entrance of the cave was simply too powerful. If he wanted to break through this energy defense, he could naturally do it, but the price he would have to pay was quite high. The snake-faced man looked at Zhuan in surprise. He knew very well how terrifying the restriction at the entrance of Crepe Myrtle Star's cave was. In the past, there were many experts in the inner layer who wanted to barge in to take a look, but they were all wiped out by the energy at the entrance of the cave. Almost none of them survived. It was because of this precedent that the experts in the inner layer did not dare to barge into Crepe Myrtle Star's cave. After Zhuan's injuries recovered, he stood silently at the entrance of the cave. He knew that when he attacked the entrance of the cave just now, he had already attracted the attention of the people in the cave. He believed that Crepe Myrtle Star would come out soon. "Who is it? How dare you barge into this Star Lord's cave?" A loud voice like a bell came from the depths of the cave. Soon after, the sound of approaching footsteps came from inside the cave. The snake-faced man looked very nervous. He whispered, "My lord, Crepe Myrtle Star is not to be trifled with. He once fought 1 against 3 and killed 3 early-stage transcending heaven lords. I think we should leave this place." Zhuan stood quietly on the spot, his eyes like torches as he looked at the entrance of the cave. He turned a deaf ear to the snake-faced man's words. The snake-faced man was a little embarrassed. He wanted to leave, but without Zhuan's order, he did not dare to. When a familiar figure finally came out of the cave, Zhuan's eyes lit up. This was a handsome man dressed in purple. His face was angular and he was extremely handsome. Zhuan was all too familiar with this man. He was Crepe Myrtle Star, whom he had met in the 8 heavens. Crepe Myrtle Star's aura was very vast and powerful, surpassing that of an early-stage transcending heaven lord. Zhuan's eyes were very sharp. Crepe Myrtle Star's cultivation should be at the mid-stage transcending heaven lord, but his aura far exceeded that of an ordinary mid-stage transcending heaven lord. He guessed that Crepe Myrtle Star was probably a peak mid-stage transcending heaven lord. This surprised Zhuan. When Crepe Myrtle Star was in the 8 heavens, he had not yet attained his Tao. It had only been a few hundred years since he left the 8 heavens, but crepe myrtle star's cultivation had improved so quickly that he had even surpassed Juan. Juan thought that his opportunities were already terrifying enough, but now he realized that compared to crepe myrtle star, his opportunities were probably nothing. Crepe myrtle star's aura was very aggressive. He soon saw Juan and the snake-faced man. However, crepe myrtle star's attention was not on the snake-faced man, but on Juan. His gaze was first angry, then puzzled and finally shocked. "Brother Joie!" Crepe myrtle star stared at Juan and could not help but cry out in surprise. However, there was still some uncertainty in his voice. "Brother Crepe myrtle, after so many years, you still remember me. How rare." Juan replied with a faint smile. Crepe myrtle star laughed loudly. With a wave of his sleeve, he expelled the powerful energy that had been set up at the entrance of the cave. He stepped forward and gave Juan a bear hug. Chapter 3277. Reminiscence. Juan smiled and did not explain the aura on his body. Instead, he said, "Brother Ziwei, can I enter your cave and have a chat with you?" Ziwei Star Monarch said warmly, "Of course. And this is your friend." When Crepe Myrtle Star saw the snake-faced man behind Juan, who was still trembling in shock, a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. "Oh, this is the guide I found." Juan turned and said to the snake-faced man, "There's nothing for you to do here. You can leave now." The snake-faced man was startled at first, but then he was overjoyed. He quickly bowed to Juan and thanked him, then fled the place as fast as he could. "Brother Joie, you're really soft-hearted. This person should be a prisoner of the inner layer. He didn't bring you here with good intentions. Instead of killing him, you let him escape," Ziwei Star Monarch said in surprise. Juan shook his head and said, "It doesn't matter. This person is just a clown. I don't need to bother with such a person. Brother Ziwei, let's go in and have a chat. There are some things I want to ask you." Ziwei Star Monarch nodded and led Juan into the cave. Before entering, Ziwei Star Monarch waved his sleeve and set up a powerful energy defense at the entrance of the cave. In the depths of the cave was a spacious stone room. There was everything inside, and the decorations were quite luxurious. Ziwei Star Monarch and Juan sat opposite each other at a large table carved from jade. Ziwei Star Monarch took out a bottle of immortal wine from his spirit ring, filled a cup, and brought it to Juan. He said, "Brother Joie, I brewed this immortal wine myself. It's called melancholy wine. It's sweet and has a rich aftertaste." Juan lifted his wine cup as the fragrance of the wine entered his nostrils. An intoxicated look involuntarily appeared in his eyes. He drank it in one gulp. It was indeed as Ziwei Star Monarch said. It was sweet and had a rich aftertaste. A faint and wondrous sweet taste spread into his mouth, and his body felt light as a feather, as if he was floating in the sky. "Good wine." Juan put down his wine cup and couldn't help but praise. Crepe Myrtle Star chuckled. He picked up the immortal wine again and poured a cup for Juan. Then, he raised the cup and offered a toast to Juan. The two of them toasted each other and were drunk. After 3 rounds of drinks, Juan put down his cup, looked at Purple Star Monarch, and said, "Brother Purple Star, I risked my life to cross the Xianmi heavenly domain to the ancient desolate heavenly domain and the Phoenix people to enter the Phoenix purgatory for my wife, Mu Chenxue. I once heard from the saintess of the Phoenix people that my wife, Mu Chenxue, was imprisoned in the Phoenix purgatory. But I entered the outer and inner layers of the Phoenix purgatory, but I didn't find any trace of my wife." Purple Star Monarch put down his cup, and his eyes became serious and hesitant. He sighed and said, "Brother Joie, when I recognized you, I knew you were here for Mu Chenxue. To tell you the truth, when I was imprisoned in the inner layer, I did see Mu Chenxue. But Mu Chenxue was imprisoned in a very special place. It was neither the outer layer nor the inner layer, but a separate prison above the inner layer. This prison is filled with flames that target the divine soul. Entering that prison is no different from entering the 18 levels of hell. Mu Chenxue's screams can often be heard in the inner layer. Bang! The jade carved table in front of him was destroyed. Purple Star Monarch looked at Zhuowen with a serious gaze. He saw that Zhuowen had only used his right hand to crush the jade table to dust. His strength was beyond Purple Star Monarch's expectations. Zhuowen took a deep breath and said in an apologetic voice, "Brother Purple Star, I'm sorry, I was a bit impulsive. I destroyed your table. What happened after that? Where is Qin Shui imprisoned now?" Purple Star Monarch waved his hand, telling Zhuowen not to mind. He continued, "After that, Mu Qinshui was taken away by the great elder of the Phoenix people. As for where she was taken, I don't know either." Taken away. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He could not help thinking of what Yuefu had said. The great elder and third elder of the Phoenix people had left the great desolate heaven domain a while ago. As for why the great elder and third elder left, Yuefu did not know either. Zhuowen did not care about this news at all and was pleasantly surprised that the great elder and third elder were not here. It was beneficial for him to break into the Phoenix people. Now it seemed like he had missed out on important information. Zhuowen was a bit dazed. He thought that he would be able to save Mu Qinshui by entering the Undying Bird Purgatory, but now it seemed like he had missed out. But very quickly, Zhuowen adjusted his attitude. At the very least, he now had a clue about Mu Qinshui's whereabouts. As long as he knew where the first and third elders had taken Mu Qinshui, he could follow this clue and find Mu Qinshui. "Brother Purple Star, why did you enter the great desolate heaven domain? Moreover, you were imprisoned in the Undying Bird Purgatory. I remember that you went to the Xianmi heaven domain, right?" Zhuowen looked at the Purple Star Monarch, his eyes full of doubt and curiosity. Back when he was in the Slaughter Heaven domain, when he first heard of the Purple Star Monarch, he was very confused. The Purple Star Monarch actually entered the Slaughter Heaven domain directly, then broke through the Slaughter Heaven domain and entered the Primitive Heaven domain. This was too unbelievable. He did not know how the Purple Star Monarch did it. The Purple Star Monarch hesitated for a moment, then said in a deep voice, "Brother Zhua, you are not an outsider, so I will tell you the truth. Back then, I did go to the Heavenly Moat to cross into the Xianmi Heaven domain. But the Heavenly Moat was too terrifying. I almost died there, but I was lucky. At the moment of danger, I found a hidden ruin. After I entered the ruin, I explored it and found that it was the inheritance left behind by the divine beast, the Undying Bird. However, the Undying Bird's inheritance was only half. After I accepted half of the Undying Bird's inheritance, my cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. Even the aura on my body became less like that of a human and more like that of the Undying Bird. After I completely accepted the half of the Undying Bird's inheritance, the other half of the Undying Bird's inheritance appeared in my mind. It was in the Undying Bird Purgatory of the Phoenix people. An ancient teleportation array appeared in the ruin. I activated the ancient teleportation array and was teleported to the entrance of the secret passage to the great desolate heaven domain. Zhuowen's eyes moved and he asked, "Did you meet a huge black lion at the entrance?" "Yes, Brother Zhua, it seems that you also met that black lion. That black lion called himself the Black King and asked me to gamble with him. I won in the end and obtained the qualification to enter the great desolate heaven domain." Speaking of this, the Purple Star Monarch's eyes were filled with anger. "The Black King clearly told me that once I entered the passage, I would immediately reach the great desolate heaven domain. But in the end, under the Black King's instructions, I entered the Massacre Heavenly Domain." Zhuowen was speechless. He looked at the Purple Star Monarch with pity. As a victim of the Black King, he could understand the grief and indignation in the Purple Star Monarch's heart. "Brother Purple Star, you are not the only one who was cheated. I was cheated too. Back then, I learned of your whereabouts in the Massacre Heavenly Domain," Zhuowen said solemnly. Chapter 3278. Black Gold Door, Brother Crepe Myrtle, that is to say, you entered the Undying Bird Purgatory to find the other half of the Undying Bird's inheritance? Zhuowen asked. Zhuowen had a deep impression of the Undying Bird. The Undying Bird was also an ancient divine beast. Perhaps it was slightly inferior to the phoenix, but it was definitely not inferior by much. The soul of the undying bird guarding the entrance to the inner layer was actually just a remnant soul of the undying bird. However, it was just a remnant soul. Zhuan had to use all kinds of trump cards to finally destroy the remnant soul. Moreover, he was also seriously injured. He knew very well that if the real undying bird appeared, it would only need one move to destroy him, Zhuo, until nothing was left. Yes, I deliberately committed a crime in Phoenix Blood City and was then caught in the undying bird purgatory. After such a long time of exploration, I basically know the exact location of the other half of the undying bird's inheritance. Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch said confidently. Brother Crepe Myrtle, since the undying bird's inheritance exists here, the Phoenix people should have already taken it. How could they not have taken it away until now? Zhuan asked doubtfully. Brother Zhua, you may not know this, but the undying bird purgatory is suppressing the physical body of the undying bird. The undying bird has the innate ability of being immortal and indestructible. Even the divine beast Phoenix, although it defeated the undying bird, it did not have the ability to completely kill the undying bird. It could only suppress its physical body below. The undying bird is suppressed by the Phoenix in the undying bird purgatory. If the Phoenix people want to enter the undying bird purgatory, they will easily be devoured by the power of the undying bird. Therefore, it is not that the Phoenix people do not want to seize the undying bird's inheritance, but that no one among the Phoenix people has the ability to go deep into the purgatory. Moreover, I suspect that once the experts of the Phoenix people have the ability to seize the undying bird's inheritance, I think the undying bird will very likely self-destruct and destroy its own inheritance. I've basically been researching how to enter the lowest level of the undying bird purgatory and find the undying bird's body to obtain the other half of the inheritance, Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign said. Upon hearing this, Zhuo nodded. He felt that what Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign said made sense. Brother Crepe Myrtle, do you have any leads now? Zhuo asked. Crepe Myrtle Star nodded and said, I do have some clues. After all, I've obtained half of the Phoenix's inheritance, so I can vaguely sense the other half. When I entered the inner layer for the first time, I created this cave residence on this rock wall because I sensed that the other half of the inheritance of the undying bird is hidden in the depths of this rock wall. Furthermore, I have indeed discovered a secret door. However, there is actually a very powerful formation outside that secret door. I think it's at least a Heavenly Ascension Grand Formation. I bombarded it for a while, but I couldn't break through the defense of the formation. At this point, Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign's eyes revealed a trace of sadness. Although he was strong, he knew nothing about formations. If he wanted to forcefully break through the formation, it would take a very long time. Moreover, the commotion of breaking through the formation was too great. At that time, the entire inner layer would be affected, and all the prisoners in the undying bird purgatory would notice. Not only that, but the Phoenix people outside the undying bird purgatory would also notice the abnormality. This was completely against Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign's wishes. Brother Crepe Myrtle, can you let me take a look at that formation? You know that I'm a divine array master. Maybe I can crack it, Zhuo said. Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign sighed softly and nodded. He led Zhuo into the depths of the cave residence. In the deepest part of the cave residence, there was a very hidden tunnel. The two of them followed the tunnel and slowly walked down. Soon, the two of them arrived at the end of the tunnel and stopped. What appeared in front of Zhuan was an even more spacious underground area. At the end of this spacious area, there was a black gold door that was 10 feet tall. The surface of the black gold door emitted a pitch black and golden light. In addition, there was a relief of a huge flaming bird. Zhuan guessed that this huge bird should be the relief of the undying bird. Brother Zhua, you can see it too. This huge black gold door is densely covered with powerful formations and restrictions. Moreover, this black gold door is not an ordinary thing. Its hardness is something I've never seen in my life, Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign said in a deep voice. Although Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign said so, he didn't have any hope that Zhuan could crack the formation on the surface of the black gold door. When he was in the 8 heavens, he also knew that Zhuan was proficient in formations. However, at that time, Nguyen was only a 9th-level formation master. Above the 9th-level formation master was the 3rd step of Dao validation. The black gold door in front of him was the highest level of the 3rd step of Dao validation. It was a heaven-level formation. How long had it been? Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign naturally didn't believe that Zhuowen's formation skills had reached the heaven-defying heaven level. In his opinion, Zhuowen's formation skills could reach the 1st step of Dao validation. He was already a genius. Zhuowen stood in front of the black gold door and observed for a while. Then, he said indifferently, "Brother Myrtle Star Sovereign, I can crack this formation, but it may take a lot of time." Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign nodded and said, "Brother Zhuo, I know that you're very talented in formations, but you've only studied formations for a short time. Although you can't crack the heaven-level formation now, you'll definitely be able to do it in the future." "What? Yuan, what did you just say?" Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign realized something and couldn't help but widen his eyes. He looked at Zhuowen and repeated what he had just said. Zhuowen's gaze was calm as he said, "This should be a heaven-connecting grade defensive formation called the Emerald Jade Defense Formation. Although it's a rather high-level formation among heaven-connecting grade formations, and it'll be rather difficult for me to break through it with my current level, I'll still be able to break through it completely. Brother Zhuo, you don't have to show off in front of me because of our relationship. After all, this is a heaven-level formation. If you're not a heaven-level formation master, it's basically impossible to crack it. I know your formation skills are very strong, but..." Before Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign could say anything, Zhuowen directly replied, "Brother Myrtle Star Sovereign, I'm a heaven-level formation master." Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign opened his mouth slightly, not knowing what to say. He just stared blankly at Zhuowen. "Brother Zhuo, are you serious?" Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign's eyes lit up with excitement. "I won't joke about this kind of thing," Zhuowen said with a smile. Good. Brother Zhuo, if you can crack the formation of this black gold gate, I, Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign, promise you that you can choose whatever you want from the inheritance of the undying bird. I only want the inheritance of the undying bird, and the rest of the undying bird's things can be yours." Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign laughed. Zhuowen waved his hand and said, "Brother Myrtle Star Sovereign, you're flattering me. If there's something I need in the inheritance of the undying bird, I'll take it. If there's no such thing, I won't touch your inheritance." Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign grinned and said expectantly, "Brother Zhuo, you're going to start now. Let's start now." Zhuowen walked to the black gold gate and sat down cross-legged. With a wave of his sleeve, he summoned beast bone formation discs. Chapter 3279. Possession 3 days later, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes, and his eyes flickered with a blazing and excited glow. With a wave of his sleeve, the beast bone formation disc violently slammed into the black gold door like a whirlwind. With a cracking sound, the ripples on the surface of the black gold door collapsed into powder, revealing the original appearance of the black gold door behind the formation. It really broke. Crepe Myrtle Star's eyes narrowed and his body trembled with excitement. Zhuowen put away the beast bone formation disc, his eyes revealing a trace of understanding. Heaven-piercing formation could be said to be very rare now. Every time Zhuowen deciphered a heaven-piercing formation, he would gain some enlightenment. Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch walked to the black gold door and pressed his right palm against it. A black flame that was so black that it was almost tangible emerged from his palm. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The carving of the undying bird on the black gold door seemed to come alive. It opened its eyes, spread its wings, and flew out of the door. Terrifying black flames burst out of its body and it burrowed into Crepe Myrtle Star's palm. The moment the undying bird entered Crepe Myrtle Star's palm, the black gold door slowly opened. A wave of extremely rich heavenly law energy surged over, causing Zhuowen to feel a wave of refreshment and comfort. What rich heaven path energy! Zhuowen's eyes were filled with surprise. The heaven path energy inside the black gold door was so terrifying that he had never seen it before. He knew very well that if he cultivated in this environment, he would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. The efficiency would be very high. The two entered the black gold door and found a huge bird's nest burning with black flames in front of them. The appearance of this bird's nest was not much different from an ordinary bird's nest. The only difference was that this bird's nest was much bigger than any building. Moreover, the bird's nest was surrounded by black flames that seemed to never be extinguished. The corpse of the undying bird should be in this bird's nest. Crepe Myrtle Star's eyes were filled with ecstasy. He could not wait to rush towards the bird's nest. As soon as Zhuowen entered the black gold door, he immediately frowned. He felt that something was wrong. Just as he was about to warn Crepe Myrtle Star, the latter had already entered the bird's nest. "Brother Crepe Myrtle Star, wait. There's something strange here," Zhuowen said hurriedly. Unfortunately, as soon as Zhuowen finished speaking, Crepe Myrtle Star had already rushed into the bird's nest. What was strange was that when Crepe Myrtle Star entered, the terrifying black flames outside the bird's nest automatically, with no intention of Crepe Myrtle Star. Zhuowen helplessly, he followed Crepe Myrtle Star and Crepe Myrtle Star star. When Li, star that, Myrtle Star star, Myrtle Star Myrtle Star, House Star Zhang Star, and Star. Zhuowen kicked with his right foot and dodged the Myrtle Star's rain in time. His eyes became cold and deep. He felt more and more strange. The bird's nest seemed to be intelligent. It allowed Crepe Myrtle Star to enter, but stopped him outside. The soul of the undying bird hasn't been completely destroyed by me. It's still alive, so it's controlling its nest? Zhuowen thought of a possibility, and his expression changed greatly. Originally, when he destroyed the soul of the undying bird at the entrance of the inner area, he thought that the soul of the undying bird had completely collapsed. Therefore, there would be no obstacles in entering the land of inheritance. However, he was wrong. The undying bird was really not simple. He had used all his trump cards, but he still could not completely destroy the soul of the undying bird. Oh no, Brother Crepe Myrtle is in danger. Zhuowen thought of something, and his expression changed slightly. He suddenly punched the bird's nest. The power of the Pangu's sacred body exploded. A terrifying wind swept out, and space and time exploded. Bang, bang, bang. The black flames on the surface of the bird's nest blasted out like a cannonball and smashed onto Zhuowen's fist. The terrifying collision energy was like water ripples, constantly spreading out in all directions. It looked very terrifying. Zhuowen did not hesitate to use the profound meaning to open the sky blade, and heaven and earth perished together. The destructive and sharp aura exploded at the same time, and the black flames around the bird's nest were directly annihilated. However, there were too many black flames around the bird's nest. They were mighty like waves, constantly sweeping toward Zhuowen as if they were going to drown Zhuowen. At this moment, Yuan used the Torch Dragon's Eye and the Fate Space-Time Kill to narrowly avoid the attack of the terrifying black flames. Zhuowen did not fight the black flames of the bird's nest head-on. He knew that the black flames were the lifetime energy of the undying bird. If he fought head-on, he would only be at a disadvantage. He planned to use the Torch Dragon's Eye to find the weakness of the bird's nest and directly enter it. The Torch Dragon's Eye was the most powerful magic of the ancestral sorcerer Candle Dragon. It could see through any flaws and fabrications. The black flames of the undying bird were not inferior to the Torch Dragon's Eye. Suddenly, Zhuowen's eyes lit up. Through the Torch Dragon's Eye, he saw several flaws in the bird's nest. He found the most obvious one. After dodging the attack of the black flames, he took a step forward and entered that flaw. The black flames surged up, trying to stop Zhuowen from rushing into the bird's nest. Unfortunately, Zhuowen did not care. He used his body to resist the black flames and rushed into the bird's nest. The space in the bird's nest was very large. The moment Zhuowen entered the bird's nest, he summoned the Thunder Fire Sword, Blood Immortal Sword, and Sacrificial Death Sword. They surrounded him to protect his safety. However, what surprised Zhuowen was that the bird's nest did not have any terrifying black flames like the outside world. Instead, the heavenly Tao energy inside was richer. In addition, Nguyen also noticed that there was a giant bird corpse lying in the middle of the bird's nest. The giant bird was covered in black feathers and burning with faint black flames. It was motionless. Nguyen knew that this should be the corpse of the undying bird. At this moment, in front of the undying bird's head, Crepe Star Sovereign was slowly approaching. He stretched out his right hand and placed it between the undying bird's eyebrows. Nguyen's eyes narrowed. He took a step forward and immediately approached Crepe Star Sovereign and pulled him back. A black energy flickered between the undying bird's eyebrows. This black energy was constantly surging into Crepe Star Sovereign's body. Nguyen knew at a glance that this black energy should be the soul of the undying bird. The undying bird was planning to possess Crepe Star Sovereign. Nguyen did not hesitate to cut off the connection between the black energy and Crepe Star Sovereign. Crepe Star Sovereign spat out a mouthful of blood, and a sharp sound came from between the undying bird's eyebrows. The sound was filled with exasperation. "Damn it, you deserve to die." The undying bird's sharp voice rang out. Then, a black energy suddenly swept out from between its eyebrows and disappeared instantly, entering Nguyen's eyebrows. Nguyen's attention was all on Crepe Star Sovereign. For a moment, he did not notice that the undying bird's soul had entered between his eyebrows. "No, your goal is to possess me?" Nguyen suddenly realized something. The undying bird's soul possessed him very quickly. He could not believe it. If the undying bird wanted to possess Crepe Star Sovereign, it would have succeeded before he entered the bird's nest. However, it did not. Instead, it created the illusion of a slow possession. All of this was to lure Nguyen to the undying bird's corpse. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.